public asked to contribute money towards this very worthy cause to help the rehabilitation of Billy Munger, who sadly had the lower part of both of his legs amputated after his dreadful Formula 4 accident. So it's great to see all the teams getting in as well. And if it's got a white window strip, that means it's in the GT3 class, and the GT4 runners, of which we have 17, have the black window strip. But of course, we always want to find out what's happening down with our number 2 man in the pit lane. And let's go down to Garage Champion with Stuart Middleton.
Well, Stuart, maiden pole position for you guys in the class. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thoroughly pleased with the job everybody did yesterday to get the car that fast in qualifying. So, yeah, really looking forward to the race now.
Well, bearing in mind it's only your 3rd session in terms of qualifying in that car, 2 at Alton Park, 1 now here at Rockingham. Are you feeling more comfy in the car?
Yeah, definitely. The more time we're getting in the car, just generally the more confident and used to it we're getting. So, yeah, with more and more time in the car, we just seem to keep improving. So, yeah, to be this quick early in the season, it's fantastic. So, hopefully there's a bit more to come again throughout the year.
And ahead as well of your Ginetta runner rivals, Alex Reed and Dave Pittard, how important is that as well for that little bit of sort of Ginetta teamwork?
It looks good. Yeah, it's good to be racing other Ginettas out there, close rounders on the start. So, yeah, if we've got any sort of faster cars on a straight line like the McLarens, then yeah, it should help us a bit at the start. So, yeah, it should be good fun.
And are you still talking to each other?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, me and Will work really well together. So, yeah, really looking forward to it.
Now, I've heard before that the Ginetta suits some circuits, it doesn't suit others. Does it suit Rockingham?
Yeah, I'd definitely say so. Rockingham's quite a slippery track, but yeah, the mid-speed corners, the Ginetta seems to excel in them. So, yeah, the Ginetta just seems to be right on it this weekend.
Do you have a favourite circuit?
I do quite like Brands GP, but I don't really have a favourite, I guess. I love racing all the circuits really, but yeah, if I said like one I'd love to thrash a car on, I'd probably say Brands GP.
And what about between you and Will, and who decides who starts, and actually does that make any difference, who's in the car first and so on?
Yeah, it can make a slight difference here and there, but yeah, the way it's worked this weekend is whoever set the fastest qualifying lap out of the 2 of us has to do the 2nd stint. So Will's starting the race and I'm doing the 2nd stint. So yeah, the way the strategy works with me and Will being more or less identical to one another lap per lap, it's not really going to matter too much. So yeah, and hopefully the strategy should work out this race. We've got it all planned out, so yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Great, Stuart, I'll talk to you during the race. Thanks very much for talking to us. Let's go back to Bruce Jones, who then is up in the commentary box.
Thanks very much, Gary Champion. You might have just heard a siren in the background. The green flag has been waved. The pit lane is now open. John Watson, the car that was most beautiful at Alton Park because it won both rounds. Number 33, John Minshaw and Phil Keane, one of the 2 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis. The sister car, number 6, had a problem this morning, but it's out there, ready to go racing, and things all look sorted down there.
But interestingly, the front row was dominated by the 2 Aston Martins, the Lamborghini in 3rd place.
Number 1, last year's champions. They will be starting with Derek Johnston, will be leading away from pole position. For British GT Championship, round 3, the first 2 rounds at Alton Park. We had 28 cars. We were supposed to have 30 this weekend. We've lost one of the GT4 runners, one of the 2 Into Racing McLarens, Marcus Hogarth and Matthew Graham, number 29, will not be coming out to play. A little bit of damage done to that. But the split will be 12 in the GT3 class and 17 in the ever-growing GT4 thing. So through the course of the race, John, we're going to have to keep our eyes, obviously, on both categories, and certainly super competitive. And it was interesting to hear Stuart Middleton really reckoning that Ginetta was pretty handy around here. You mentioned those round black things, tyres.
I think this racetrack is going to be a circuit that's going to be on the harder side in terms of tyre wear because it's more abrasive. we've got a very strong wind blowing more or less across the circuit, and that's catching some of the gravel beds there. There's quite a lot of dust, so that then gets blown onto bits of the circuit, which changes the grip levels in one corner vis-a-vis the previous corner you've come from.
Well, in fact,
so things for teams and drivers, not just to think about, but to look after. And you don't want to knock out your left front tyre, particularly because that might be the tyre you're going to lean on or need come later in the race.
yes, it's interesting to look where the big gravel traps are. There's one on the exit of Gracelands, and I noticed in a mini race earlier today, one car went deep into that, and the dust blew over the barriers and landed at the braking point for Brook, that funny little chicane. So, cars already coming round to sit on the grid. This is a 2-hour race, and for the AM drivers now, they have to do a minimum of 1 hour. So they've got their work cut out, and the AM drivers go first.
Yes, and it's quite a high work rate circuit. It's very tight, that infield. You never really get a chance to catch your breath. You're either braking, turning, accelerating, braking, turning, accelerating. It's really only when you come onto the final corner through Brook that you get onto the main straight. Then you get that long turn one, which is, of course, the banked part of this racetrack, before you run down into turn 2, which is Dean. Consequently, everywhere else it's deep concentration and deep commitment.
One of the things about the British GT Championship, it continues to change its form. Many moons ago it was GT2 cars, then they became too expensive, we had GT3s. But the real success story now is the arrival of GT4, and the way year on year it keeps growing. But it's not the same cars at the front in the class each year. And we had a little sighting of the McLaren 570S. That's definitely a car that is coming on strong. So the car's now coming down to the front of the grid, and the car that won't be starting on front row but from row 2 is the number 33 Lamborghini. Don't forget that has 2 wins in the bag, but a long pit stop to come.
So a fantastic sound as the cars make their way onto the grid as we start the build-up for round 3 of the 2017 British GT Championship here at Rockingham. And what a race in progress.
A 2-hour race coming up, John, but one of the things that all the cars will have to do, providing they get to that pretty much the 60 to 70 minute stage of the race, is the pit stop. But you succeed and you gain extra time for your pit stop. If you're in the top 3, if you finish first, you have a 20-second extra amount of time added to your mandatory pit stop. Your elapsed time in the pit stop for GT3 cars is 1 minute 20 seconds. Sorry, it's 120 seconds. It's 2 minutes, and it's 35 seconds longer in GT4. So 20 extra seconds on top, 15 if you were second, and 10 seconds if you were third. So in the case of Minshaw and Keane, they took 2 wins, so they've got 20 seconds to add to their pit stop time. Johnston and Adams, starting from the inside of from pole position, they will add 15. Barnes and Farmer, outside of front row, they also have 10 seconds to add. Could be a big factor, and it's very unusual for people to be able to achieve continuous wins in the championship because of this pegging back in the pit stops. In fact, apparently the last time it happened was, I believe, in 2006, when someone won the first 2 rounds of the championship, Chris Niarchos and Tim Mullin. So it is an impediment.
It's difficult because you're being penalised for being successful, which sort of goes contradictory to what motorsport's all about. But the concept is to try and give everybody who's an entrant and a driver the best opportunity to have their day on the podium, rather than having one team come in and utterly dominate, which is something which I have to say I concur with the organisation and trying to make it more exciting and more entertaining for the viewers and the public that are going to be here today.
And it's also in the GT4 class as well, and so that will affect some of the Ultratech Nissans. But what we really need to find out is what is happening down on the grid. We've got the 2 Aston Martins from TF Sport on the front row, but let's go to the winners of the first 2 rounds. Gary Champion down with the number 33 crew.
Well, you could say down here with John Minshaw that actually he's in the wrong place. Fair opinion?
Well, look, I looked at the video afterwards. I went over the track limits. You know, I agree completely with what the clerk of the course decided. You know, we're third on the grid, and it's a 2-hour race.
Oh, hey, now there's fighting talk from John Minshaw, for goodness sake. So what happened then, John? In terms of your times, your first time, your second time were disallowed, but clearly you were going very well if your third time still keeps you here.
I really think we've got the, you know, for the first time for a long time, we seem to have got a setup at Rockingham, or it just seemed to work yesterday anyway. Let's see what the race brings, but No, I was quite comfortable during qualifying, but I just we missed FP2 because we had a technical issue with an engine. Right. So I think I probably was a little bit too bull at the gate for qualifying and just overcooked the exit curbs.
Okay. Now, in terms of the weather as well, it's got, it's a sunny day. It's a warm day here as well at Rockingham. It wasn't what was forecast. Has that made any difference?
Well, not really at all. Whether it's wet or dry, I think we're going to have a good race. I think one of the things that might come into play is that the rules have changed slightly this year. That the amateurs have got to do just over 50% of the stint in this race, and I don't know how many people have driven for an hour before. And with it being quite warm, you never know. You might see some fatigue.
Okay.
Hopefully it's not me.
Well, it won't be you. You're the professional, for goodness sake. You're used to all this. Right, let's leave him. Let's go to the front of the grid. Come this way, Brownie. We'll go down here and let's see if we can find one of the guys in the Astons, because we should have second drivers, I'm rather hoping, down here. Now, Bruce Jones is ready. Here we are. We do have a second man, and it happens to be only one of the best drivers in an Aston Martin. And if you're not, actually, you shouldn't have the job that you've got, because you are a professional for them.
Yeah, I've been with Aston since 2013, and I've driven these type of cars, the GT3 cars, long enough now. But it still shows, just having two cars on the front row, that the car is still good in this championship. And we had a great win last weekend at Monza and Blancpain, so the car is, as a base still for customers, it's still winning races across the world.
Yeah. And I have to say as well, I was talking to Derek earlier, there's a great relationship between the two of you, and there's no secrets.
No, we're quite open. We're open as a team as well. We'd rather have two cars up the front rather than a single car. But Derek's really easy to work with. He's fast. He just needs a little bit of detail when it comes to data and onboard to make him extra quick. But no, we work really well together. Obviously, having won the championship last year, he's on a high this year, and we're in the best possible position today off pole. But it's going to be an interesting race. I think the Lamborghinis, are going to be very quick throughout the race. This type of circuit, especially the infield section, will suit the mid-engine car. But we've got good race pace. Worked on the car heavy yesterday and seemed to have a nice balance. So I think we should be okay today.
It's interesting the way that Mr. Adams' view has gone up there towards that Lamborghini. Clearly, he's thinking about it in a little bit more detail than perhaps he's letting on, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're in for a cracking race. Bruce Jones, I think it might be some tough competition down here, on the grid. Having a look at Johnny's, the way that he just glanced up there at the Lambo.
Thanks, Gary. Yes, we were watching that as well, and it does make me laugh. You talked about it being a warm day down on the grid, and then you interview a driver wearing a woolly hat. But it's Aston Martin's at the front, then the two Lamborghinis on the second row, then on the third row we've got a Bentley and a Mercedes. But back in the world of GT4, it's Ginettas to the fore. They seem to be the wieldy two. We heard of Stuart Middleton before the race. He'll be in the number 55, started by his teammate Will Tregurtha. But again, a great mix of cars, John, in all the classes in GT3 and GT4.
Well, certainly the GT4 category is, as you pointed out, Bruce, gathering momentum, gathering in popularity, and of course part of that is the cost base of GT4, much lower cost base than a GT3 car. But just going back down to what Gary was saying, on the grid with the two Aston Martins locking up that front row, and you've got then the two Lamborghini behind, you've got quite a long run actually from the rolling start into, through turn one, down into Dean Corner. And as I've seen, being part of the Blancpain Sprint and Endurance Championship events, the first two events we've seen, unfortunately, a lot of collision and a lot of damage to cars. Into Dean, it's always an issue because there's such a choice of you take a high line and drop down, you take the tight line and try to control the corner. A lot of variation. And no matter what any driver says, or what any driver might be in the driver briefing might consider, when the visor comes down, the traditional red mist. Now, there's a mix of amateur and professional drivers. Mostly it's the second driver in the GT3 cars that will be taking the start, but they are nonetheless very competitive. But it is a 2-hour race. It's not a 5-lap sprint. You're not going to win the race going into turn one, locking up and colliding with another car. So everybody has just got to be aware of the potential of what happens down into that corner called Dean.
Well, it's not just the cars at the front. Of course, you go down towards just before mid-grid, and it's the GT4 runners. And let's go down with Gary. He's got David Pittard down on the grid. He'll be racing with Alex Reed.
Well, I have to say, we've got at the front of the grid, we've got the GT3 cars, and it's locked out from Aston. Here on the GT4 pole, it's locked out by you boys in the Ginettas. This is going to be tight between the two of you, but actually this GT4 category is getting very competitive and very full.
I know. I mean, we're over 50% of the grid this year. GT4 is just going from strength to strength. It's perfect time to be in it, with all the manufacturers that are in here as well. SRO do a fantastic job to balance the cars, and even though Ginetta are locking out the front three, it's extremely close all the way down the grid, and over the 2 hours it's going to play out even differently.
How competitive yesterday was qualifying?
Very close. I mean, myself and Stuart were separated by 0.02 of a second, I think.
A fag paper, to be honest.
Effectively. Sam could probably tell you the distance, my data man. But obviously with the two driver format, we both drivers qualify. Therefore, the aggregate time gets put together. So there's a little bit behind, but I think we were 100th ahead of these guys and less than a 10th ahead of these guys as well. So it's seriously close out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be very competitive. It's a warm day. Make any difference?
Yes, hopefully the warmer the track, the more the tyres for the McLaren will go off, because they're a bit heavier than us. So I think they're going to struggle more, certainly, with tyre deg than us. So that will play into our hands because we won the last round out. We've got an extra 20 seconds to make up in the pit stops. So I hope coming the end of the race we'll be knocking on the McLaren's door again.
Great. Thank you very much. When he said it was close, Bruce, he didn't tell us the distance. His fact man behind us says that it was 70 centimetres difference between that car and that Ginetta over there. 70 centimetres. Don't get closer than that, Bruce Jones, does it?
Certainly doesn't, but great to hear there. Thank you very much, Gary, with David Pittard. What a personal young driver, but also very aware of what's going on, John, because, of course, he mentioned which will go off more, the Ginetta or the McLaren. He reckons the McLaren will go off more. Into the final 10 minutes before the start of the 2-hour round 3 of the British GT Championship at Rockingham. The sky is bright, the wind is blowing. We can see the grid girls' hair streaming behind them. The wind blows down the start-finish straight. John Watson and I are up in the grandstand on the left looking down across the circuit. Thumbs up from Derek Johnson. He has one on the door. He's reigning champion with Johnny Adam. He's on pole position. The sister Aston Martin from TF Sport on the outside of the front row, with Mark Farmer starting that before handing over to John Barnes. And then we get a brace of Lamborghinis on the second row. Would any other manufacturer get a bid in for victory? We've got a Bentley and a Mercedes on the third row, but right now, John, you have to say it's looking very strong indeed for either the Aston Martins or the Lamborghinis.
Yes, but I think David Pittard summed it up very well, talking to Gary, our champion, by saying that he thought the McLaren, the 570S, the GT4 version of the McLaren, is maybe a little bit more hard on that rear tyre. So front engine Ginetta, or mid-front engine Ginetta, as opposed to mid-rear engine McLaren. And the same principle is going to apply to those GT3 cars, who have got probably more weight, certainly more energy through the horsepower the cars generate. And potentially they're going to have to be more cautious because, as I mentioned, the circuit has got a fairly aggressive nature. The wind gets blowing some of the dust on the gravel traps across corners. That wind is sort of coming almost diagonally across the track. That may have some bearing on some of the corners because the strength of the wind is sufficient that it might just affect some cars more than others. But primarily, if I was going to drive, and I'm not planning to come out of retirement, but seeing some of our competitors, probably my age, they would probably need to think about the opening lap and not nailing it maybe quite as hard as they want to do if they want to preserve their tyre life through the 1 hour they're going to be behind the wheel.
And perhaps preserve themselves. All the AM drivers or the AM in any Pro-Am pairing will be starting the race. They have to do a minimum of 1 hour. So for them, a lot of them, they had half that stint time in each of the opening races at Alton Park. Here is a bigger ask, and as we've mentioned, Rockingham isn't a circuit that gives very much time in which a driver can relax around the course of a lap. So there are many things, no doubt, even at this very early stage in the season, round 3 of 9, going through their heads. 30 seconds until the cars will start to rumble out around the circuit. 1.94 miles, and number 1, reigning champion, but bear in mind they're well placed in this year's series, but the 33 Lamborghini of John Minshaw and Phil Keane took victory in round 1 and round 2 at Alton Park. The first in the wet, the second in the dry. They're starting third on the grid.
The Trackler McLaren and 59, which is the Blackpool coach. 59 McLaren, the other one. At row 12, we've got 42 Macmillan Aston Martin and 111 Century Post Fortunetta. Row 13, the 36 Volkswagen RCID.
Rockingham in South Leicestershire, banked oval, built to bring IndyCar to the UK, and then of course the infield circuit has had club and international racing ever since. 29 cars will take the start for round 3 of the British GT Championship for 2017. The first 2 rounds, the first in the wet, the second in the dry at Alton Park on Easter Monday. Perfect conditions, I would say, this afternoon. Just a wind blowing from east to west down the length of the start-finish straight. But as we look at the cars going down to Dean, nice and gently on the opening, on the run, but what would it be like on the opening lap? It's a very, very tight 2-bite hairpin, John, as you come off the banking.
It's always going to be, let's say, tricky, because you've got a lot of cars probably as close as they are going to be at any point during this 1 hour stint for the majority of the drivers in the field. And it's just a question of, if you are unsure, don't shut the door, because you may end up finding somebody thinking they're going to get away with it, hoping they're going to get away with it, and they want you to give them a little bit of latitude. So into turn, what I would call, well, Dean is effectively turn 2. Tricky corner on this opening lap.
Well, let's have a look at the grid. If you have an Aston Martin, you have a smile, because the TF Sport entries, first and second, Derek Johnson will take the start from pole, Mark Farmer from alongside him up on the grandstand side of the start-finish straight. Then John Minshaw and Liam Griffin will start their Lamborghinis from Barwell on row 2. Rick Parfitt will start inside of the third row in his Bentley from Team Parker Racing. Lee Mole alongside in his Mercedes from AMD Tuning. Then Duncan Cameron, he's got our camera car, number 21 Ferrari, spirit of the race. Sandy Mitchell, Parker Chase from the United States, 16 years old, and Harry Godsecker, another American racer, completing the top 10 on the grid. And then we run down to the best of the GT4 runners. In 13th place, Will Tregurtha, just behind Neary's Mercedes and Ian Loggie's Bentley, and Alex Reed. And let's just run you through quickly to the last page. Down to 29th position, we lost one of the cars, and bringing up the rear will be Richard Marsh in the Into Racing, number 14 McLaren. But the car's coming through the final sweep, out of that final corner, onto the banking now. It'll be faster in race trim, and we've got the GT3 runners all together, waiting for the signal. And away they go. Very, very clean start from pole position, but straight away trying to get second place by diving up the inside of Mark Farmer. Went John Minshaw, didn't quite work, and now he's being challenged. In fact, a really quick run in behind one of the Lamborghinis. The other Lamborghini has dropped back a few places. One of the Aston Martins gained quite a few positions at the start. It was Jack Mitchell from 8th on the grid, but clean start from poleman Derek Johnson there, John.
Yes, a clean start pretty much from the entire field, which I'm delighted to see. So everybody now for the opening lap, and John Minshaw, very racy, dives up the inside, takes that second place away, and now the two Astons trying to fight their way round as they come into the Chapman curve, then through the pit path. So a great start from the Lamborghini, using the opportunity at the earliest opportunity, and gets that second place.
Well, I have to say hats off to Jack Mitchell, up from 8th into 3rd place in the white Aston Martin from Macmillan AMR, and then Mark Farmer, who said beforehand he was going to beat his teammate Derek Johnson. Sadly, he's 3 positions behind. He's fallen from 2nd to 4th. Car number 69 going well at this point. Harry Godsacker really getting stuck in his Ginetta, but you have to say what a great opening half lap, and 3/4 lap. They come to the penultimate corner now, in fact, from our poleman Derek Johnson. There behind is Rick Parfitt Jr., and he's got the AMD Mercedes right in behind with Lee Mole at the wheel, but the gap at the end of the opening lap looks like it's about a second. 1.4 seconds. John Minshaw had a little look to make a move going down to turn 1, didn't get it to stick. 21, that's Duncan Cameron. He started 7th and he's come through in 6th position, so places gained for him, but certainly Jack Mitchell had the most impressive opening lap.
So the field makes their way down through the beginning of this infield segment of the racetrack. The Bentley almost sort of looking to find a way to squeeze past Rick Parfitt Jr. Tom Palmer. Oh, and somebody has gone or locked up big time. Oh, it's into the gravel. It is gravel. That's the problem.
Oh, well, that's Harry Gottsacker. I just mentioned that, and I just want to point out on our timing screens it's being shown as James Littlejohn. Sorry, not Jack Mitchell, my mistake. So it's James Littlejohn who had that super start. But will we have any flags coming out other than just a waved yellow? There is our race leader, Derek Johnson, behind John Minshaw, and then let's reiterate, not Jack Mitchell, it's James Littlejohn.
Yes, and Derek Johnson running wide, coming through the infield, whereas John Minshaw on the Lamborghini much tidier, and consequently that's the reason why the gap that was 1.4 seconds as they come across start-finish line, I suspect is going to be reduced.
Well, let's just take a look. This is the view that Duncan Cameron has in the Spirit of Race Ferrari, tucked in behind the tail of Mark Farmer, who didn't get the best of starts and fell from second on the grid back into, I think that'll put him in 4th place. So Duncan Cameron, safety car, there's the thing at the top of the screen as John Minshaw is just starting to make some inroads on our race lead. He got down to 3/4 of a second, but the signal has been seen by all the drivers. They've come through turn 1. Poor old 69 Harry Gottsacker deep in the gravel, but the safety car is now in front of our race leader. You can see the field slowing down through Dean. So frustration, we thought we might have we've got a McLaren coming into the pits, just trying to work out which one that is. It's car number 72 into the pits. That's our other onboard car. That's Adam Ballon and Adam Mackay, who actually placed very well at Alton Park.
I wonder, maybe for the McLaren coming in, is that the reason why we saw the Ginetta in the gravel? Inevitably, there's usually some reason the car goes into gravel in the opening laps, and contact may be the cause.
I think they were quite a long way apart. I think Harry Gottsacker was away. There's our 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th.
Just a big lock-up. I mean, that looks like maybe something beyond normally you would say either a brake or throttle, whatever, but massive lock-up straight off into the gravel.
I think that must have happened about 2 nanoseconds after I said Harry Gottsacker's going well. The track went right, he went straight on at Yentwood. There's Rick Parfitt Jr. sitting. There is another camera angle of the same event at Yentwood, looking down towards the corner. So we talked about people keeping their noses clean, not getting it wrong in the early laps. No collision there, but deep in the gravel. But luckily they're dragging that out very quickly from the gravel at Yentwood, and we don't think it'll be a long period behind the safety car. For our race leader, Derek Johnson, the frustration having got 1.4 seconds clear, but we did see John Minshaw on that second lap halve that advantage.
Yeah, now that second lap, John Minshaw had the quickest lap of this race, only 2 laps, but 1:19.4 as opposed to a 1:20.1, so just over half a second. So you imagine that John Minshaw is looking to take advantage of when this race returns to a clear track, that he will try and work over Derek Johnson. We're on board with him right now in the Aston Martin, going up and down the gears. The cars are making their way down into Dean Corner, which is the beginning of the infield. You can see trying to generate some energy in the front tyres, of course, running behind the safety car. Usual story. Tyre temps and tyre pressures begin to suffer. Waiting to see how long the safety car will remain out. It looks possible. The light's still on the safety car, so but can't quite work out. It's around the back of the circuit.
Yeah, it's just a Chapman curve at the moment. Yeah. So for the Track Club McLaren crew, nothing much seems to be going on down there. But just going back to Derek Johnson leading around, we talked about this being a long stint for the AM driver, and as Derek said in his interview with Garage Champion, the pro driver is a pro driver. I go to work on Monday. This is what he does at the weekend, and does it very well. Clearly reigning British champion in GT. Well, there is the 69 Harry Gottsacker Ginetta from being extracted from the gravel. That's racing for Century Motorsport in GT3, but not racing at the moment. But we think it should be clear very soon. Now the field has just gone past the point of impact.
They were being there's the car now rolling. They were being very concise about everybody coming into that area where the Ginetta was being returned to the circuit to slow right down. Still got the safety lights on board the McLaren. So will this be a further lap behind the safety car? The only good side of a safety car is, of course, these are not racing laps, and consequently for everybody it's a little bit of a chance just to catch your breath after the start, the tension that you get at the start.
No, indeed, we were talking about that before the start of the race. So they've got to get it all over Again, now, will John Minshaw, as we look back at John Minshaw dropping away, he's behind the safety car, that's absolutely fine, but we're going to be interested because obviously John Minshaw's got more racing miles under his belt than the man in the number 1, Aston Martin, leading the way around behind the safety car. That is Derek Johnson. Mind you, Derek's been clocking up experience at a huge rate in recent years, but John Minshaw's been racing for decades.
Yes, I mean, these are gentlemen who come into motor racing, in some cases maybe in their middle phase of their lives, and they're enjoying something which they would have maybe come to 20 years ago as a spectator. And many of them are exceptionally able and talented drivers, and it's great to see that they can be competitive, along with the case of Derek Johnson. Johnny Adam, we spoke on the grid, an outstanding drive last weekend at Monza to win the Pro-Am category. In fact, in his stint, he set the fastest lap of that race in the closing laps of his pursuit of the Ferrari that was leading the category to get into the lead. So he's on a high, the car capable of outstanding performances, but of course it's the AMs rather than the professionals right now.
Right, good news is the safety car looks like it's coming in this lap. I think the lights are out, the sun is shining, it's quite hard to make out. He goes around Tarzan, the SC board and the waved yellow flag still out, yellow and red flag for greasy surface. And we've just heard news from the pits. The 72 had a stone through the radiator. That was the track club McLaren, and afraid that hasn't been helping, thus the liquid out on the circuit.
So the safety car will be coming in, and Minshaw will want to get onto the tail of Johnson at the earliest opportunity.
There we have it, the restart. They've seen it, the safety car pulled into pit entry. There's the wave green flag. So Derek Johnson's got to absolutely nail it. So he has. Now, is John Minshaw gaining in second place? No, not really. It's very even Stevens between them. And in third place, James Littlejohn, seeing what he can do in the Macmillan AMR Aston Martin. So it's Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Aston Martin, and for good measure, a third Aston Martin in fourth place with Mark Farmer, the second of the TF Sport cars. Then we have Rick Parfitt Jr. and Duncan Cameron fancying his chances, just tucked in behind the Bentley in the green and silver Ferrari.
Yeah, Rick Parfitt flashing the headlights as if that's going to make any difference in this. Once again, back to a racing lap. And going down now into Piff Paff, then back up this very short straight. Littlejohn trying to put pressure on the Lamborghini. He's actually quite close to the back of it. He's probably made the best of the three leading cars' best start. So he's holding close to the back, looking to have a little nibble down the inside, not close enough, nowhere near, and then the process slightly overruns as he comes through Tarzan.
Well, it's all really starting to bunch up in that battle. In fact, as I look out of the window across Rockingham Speedway, it's getting closer and closer in batches around the field. But right now, certainly Duncan Cameron is getting very close to Rick Parfitt Jr., who in turn is right now on the tail of the second of the TF Sport Aston Martins as they wriggle their way through that final corner, well, out of the Brook chicane onto the final corner, onto the banking. 1.4 seconds is the gap between our race leader Derek Johnson and John Minshaw in second place. Leading the way in GT4 is Alex Reed. We heard from his teammate David Pittard before the start of the race in car number 51, 12th place overall to lead in GT4. Great to stay on board with Duncan Cameron, working so hard. He's a driver who gets a lot of racing these days around Europe, European Le Mans Series, Blancpain, and obviously the British GT as well. Just can't get enough, almost always partnered with Matt Griffin. Let's see what moves he can make here.
Well, Matt Griffin is a teammate, of course. He's a Ferrari central contractor driver, but Duncan Cameron over the last number of years has increased his skill level and becomes a very competent, almost more than an AM. But having to work hard behind the wheel of the Ferrari is not simply allowing him to just steer on the throttle. He's having to balance the car on the steering a lot more, I would think, is necessary.
Now, what we're seeing at the moment is the Bentley in front, and just in front of this Mark Farmer. I think Farmer's going to be passed very soon. He's actually holding them up, and Rick Parfitt, I think, is making the move, but he's alongside him as they go through Tarzan. Can't make it stick. Farmer had the better exit line. They go down School Straight, come up to the left and right of Brook, and still fourth place held by Mark Farmer. But for those behind, it's becoming quite frustrating for Parfitt, for Cameron, and Lee Mole is now closing onto their tail as well.
Yeah, that's what you're going to get in the middle of the circuit. There's nowhere really that you can make a clean pass. You've got to be absolutely square alongside that car, trying to throw it down the inside and get away with it. But Rick Parfitt closer now to the tail of the Aston Martin as they come through turn one, goes down the inside. Can he make it stick? No. The Aston brakes a lot later and deeper, but in the process almost overruns, but is just able enough to get it back to stay ahead of the Bentley. Again, I don't know whether Rick Parfitt's got a very busy digit on his right hand, flashing. I mean, every lap I've seen the Bentley's lights have been flashing. For what purpose?
Maybe it's just the equivalent of someone sitting, getting frustrated with their foot tapping up and down.
Maybe it's because of his dear old dad.
It could be, yeah. Knocking out some
He's got
cords.
a plectral in his finger.
He gets an extra page of excuses in his book. No excuses need for Rick Parfitt Jr. Very, very handy driver. But I'd say right now, a very frustrated driver in that number 31 Bentley in 5th place. But he can see ahead of Farmer. The car's getting smaller. James Littlejohn is starting to escape up the track in 3rd place, trying to hang on to John Minshaw, who's 1.2 seconds down on Derek Johnson. Well, it looks less than that because he's making a little shimmy to see if he could go through into Brook. Brook's such a tight corner, though. So the number 24 Aston Martin tucks in behind into 3rd place again.
Strange, because John Minshaw on the opening lap looked like the man on the move. Now he's having to be defensive. And it's Richard Littlejohn on the Aston Martin that's beginning to give the Lamborghini a bit of a tough time. Coming through turn 1, again getting the run on the Lamborghini. Again, when he looked to go down the inside, Minshaw can cover the inside line, can keep the car neat and tight, not close enough to try and make the undercut, and again going further back through the field. These 4 cars all fighting, basically, as you pointed out, the performance Mark Farmer in the 4th place Aston, holding up the Bentley, the Ferrari and the Mercedes. But that's his job. He's not there to wade them through.
No, absolutely not. But every time I look at Dean and just looking at that move for James Littlejohn, or attempted move, it's such a difficult corner to overtake on. But it's the most logical place. But GT4, this is the battle for 2nd place now in class. Car number 51, Alex Reed, because the lead has been taken by car number 100, which is one of the 2 Blackpool Garage 59 McLarens, and Kieran Haggerty is leading the way. But right now this is Alex Reed and Will Tregurtha, car 55. We heard from Tregurtha's teammate Stuart Middleton before the start of the race, and they are super close. But we talked about Ginetta or McLaren. At the moment it's McLaren leading the way in GT4.
Yes, but what we've heard from early on the grid is the McLaren that they feel might be struggling a little bit towards the end of the stint with that rear tyre wear. Back again to this battle for 4th place. Farmer holding off Parfitt, Cameron and Lee Mould, and it's beginning now to sort of develop into a pattern. And Rick Parfitt has tried one way, he's tried the other way, but hasn't really been in a position, not close enough to try and slide down the inside. The Aston takes the wider entry, which means he gets a better second part of the corner, gets off it without maybe spinning up the rear wheel, whereas Parfitt's having to adjust to try and do something, make something happen, which so far hasn't worked.
Yeah, try he might, but he's got to try some different angles down at Dean, because that's the most likely passing place on the circuit. And Duncan Cameron had dropped back somewhat in the Spirit of Race Ferrari, but because Rick Parfitt was slightly out of line, just because he couldn't find his way past Mark Farmer, we've got the Cameron Ferrari closing back in. Looks fantastic in that dark green and silver livery, but the pace car in that grouping is Rick Parfitt. He just cannot make Mark Farmer ahead of him and make a mistake. And again, down the school straight behind the pits and paddock, we see James Littlejohn trying to make a move up to 2nd place in the Macmillan AMR Aston Martin, but it just isn't working. The person it's working best for, he's not really having to push too hard. Derek Johnson, of course, he'll say, I'm pushing very hard indeed, but he's not being challenged. 1.6 seconds became 1.3 seconds, so they are keeping him honest, but he's just not being challenged enough at the moment.
The beauty for Derek Johnson is he can drive his own race. He's got no one ahead of him. He can use which part of the racetrack he chooses. Rick Parfitt this time, can he get it done? Naked stick? Yes, he does. That was a brave move down the inside, on the brakes late, slightly over around the corner, but took out the Aston Martin, forced it wide as well. So he's made the clean break. He's now got Duncan Cameron, who will be looking and saying, well, if Bentley can squeeze through into turn 2, down at Dean, if I get the run on the Aston Martin, which is what the Bentley did, I can do the same.
Yeah, I expect Rick Parfitt Jr. to pull away in that Bentley from Team Parker Racing to drop Mark Farmer now. But Mark drove a very, very tidy race for the first handful of laps, but just at the start of lap 11 couldn't quite do enough to prevent. But luckily left the door open, realising a heroic move. He had been put in a position where he was likely to be passed, and he let Parfitt go through without coming across and taking the 2 of them out. But now Cameron getting closer and closer, and Lee Mole, haven't talked too much about him in the AMD tuning Mercedes, has been able to get onto the tail. He's got a car that qualified ahead of him. He's got Sam Tordoff in the number 6 Lamborghini behind him, so he's got to look forwards and backwards, of course, what all drivers have to do apart from our race leader. But for Lee Mole, it's very close, and he's getting right in onto the tail of the car we're riding with now, which is Duncan Cameron's Ferrari.
We saw what Parfitt did a lap ago. Is he going to be close enough as they come into turn 1? It's probably Not going to happen this lap. Lee Mole in the Mercedes just that little bit further behind, keeping an eye. And all of a sudden, the gap between those 4 cars that were all battling, in effect, over 4th place, they've begun to string out again.
I think they then might bunch up again. It depends if Mark Farmer can stay at the pace he is now, because he's got Duncan Cameron all over him. But look, James Littlejohn still trying to get second place away from the driver of the winning pair that won both of the opening rounds, John Minshaw and Phil Keane. Phil will take over after the 1 hour mark, but right now John Minshaw is having to work very, very hard indeed. Derek Johnson a second and a bit to the good, in fact just under a second on the start finish line. But for Littlejohn and Minshaw, we're dealing in fractions of a second. But the white Aston Martin has looked very, very good indeed. We saw under the bonnet before the race 6-litre V12, certainly a fantastic tool. But the Vantage getting relatively long in the teeth.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I've been saying it for quite a long time. But it is a very effective race car, and it's one of the finest balanced, which makes it a much easier car for the amateur of these partnerships. So if you give a driver a very tricky mid-engine car that's got a very narrow window of operation, it's not much pleasure, not much fun. Whereas the Aston, I think, is a very well balanced. As we go on board with Duncan Cameron coming on to start-finish straight, and you can see just under acceleration the Aston Martin pulling marginally. It's all stabilised now. Now Duncan Cameron, if he's going to take a punt too far back, but he thinks he can do it. Can he get it without having a collision? Well, you can't get any closer and not collide than that.
That was a collective intake of breath in the commentary box. We thought he'd gone from way too far back and yet kept on going. But I think Mark Farmer, didn't see if he just swerved very slightly, but if he did. Now this is the race lead. First 3 cars covered by half a second. Haven't seen why Derek Johnson suddenly slowed. He was 1.5 seconds clear, then it went down to 1.2. Then it went down to 0.9, and now it's down to 0.7, and in fact that was the last timing interval. We think it's less than that. So the first 3 covered by nothing, and in fact they've got a GT4 runner just up ahead of them. So will this be the move from John Minshaw? Will James Littlejohn try and guess and go around the outside of the turn? He's now trying to duck up the inside. Will he make the move? Staying 3 abreast.
He's made it 3. Yes. Well, just about manages. Johnson keeps the car in the lead. Minshaw tried to go up the inside.
Johnson made
Littlejohn was the one that really... There's the mistake now. Minshaw goes all the way around, the long way around in that final sequence of corners. He's going to be slightly offline on the exit, and there's going to be the second of those 2 Astons, number 24, that will be partly beneficiary as they come in side by side, and Johnson backs out of it. He doesn't want to be up high up because it's a little bit dirtier high up on the banking.
Well,
so he's backed out of it. Now, big change in the space of 1 lap.
Third to first, first to third, more to the point. Derek Johnson, the number 1 Aston Martin, had been losing pace a little bit. Now he's got Rick Parfitt Jr., so the first 4 covered by about, well, let's call it a second between the top of them. Derek Johnson then just started making a mistake, running very deep, as Mark Lemmer watches on his car now leading the race, one of his 2 cars, the 2 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghinis. So John Minshaw now in the lead of the race. Don't forget, I'll come to this later, that has a longer extra amount of time bolted onto its pit stop. That's an extra 20 seconds he's got to make up. But now John's in the front. He's desperate to shake James Littlejohn off his tail in that really well driven Aston Martin from Macmillan AMR, but that doesn't have a time penalty to add to its pit stop, whereas the car number 33 certainly does. 20 extra seconds.
What James Littlejohn had really done was watch what was going on with the lead Aston, second place Lamborghini, and he knew that at some point they're going to they nearly did trip over each other down into Dean the previous lap. He just sat there and waited. He got his momentum in track position, and he took that position away.
So GT4, this is that car number 100 leading the way. Kieran Haggerty, Black Bull Garage 59, and being chased hard. Now number 55, that was in 3rd place in class. It's now up to 2nd, Will Tregurtha, and it's closing in. It's getting tighter and tighter. So what John predicted is happening, and he's happy.
No, what I was talking about is some cars for AMs are easier to drive, and the Ginetta is a very easy, straightforward, uncomplicated, but very well balanced GT car. The McLaren is an extremely sophisticated, modern mid-engine car, but normally, certainly a GT3 has got a more restricted or narrower performance window. You find it's quick, but if you don't or you're not confident, and that's the difference if they've got a twin-turbo V8 compared to what's in the Ford, a 4-cylinder Ford engine or V6 Ford. Straight line performance, not massively different, but the ease for the Ginetta is just that little bit less pressure for Giga in that car. So the battle for first and second in GT4, well, it actually had closed down. Now it's marginally opening back up as they go on to the 15th lap.
Well, John, just as soon as you talked about the different handling, we saw coming around Tarzan, the double right-hand hairpin behind the pits and paddock, that as they exited the corner, we saw Kieran Haggerty just waiting for some grip to come, and yet the Ginetta behind the McLaren just put it down. But as soon as they got to the start-finish straight, the McLaren just seems that little bit sleeker, maybe got a slightly better entry, but it really proved. And again, looking at them going through, that's the piff-paffs going around towards Graceland, that Ginetta does look very, very well balanced.
Yeah, it's a mid-engine, front-engine car as opposed to a mid-engine, rear-engine car. But it is essentially a very uncomplicated but very effective, again, closing right up to the tail of the McLaren as they come through Tarzan. Just it can do nothing more than he's doing. He's just running corner by corner, closing the gap when they get onto the main straight.
Just
and
a bit of
twin turbo power just uses its effort.
It does, and it's a V8, 3.7 litre Ford V8 in the Ford. In the Ginetta behind.
It's a V8.
V8.
Okay, I thought it was a V6.
No, so in fact we've got a flat 6 in the Porsche Cayman, a straight 4 in the Nissan 370Z, but V8s
straight V6.
No,
Nissan.
Nissan is a 3.8 litre. So look at the battling there. John Minshaw now trying to pick his way through. James Littlejohn tucked in behind in the McLaren, going past one of the Ultratech Nissans, and then got a McLaren tucked in behind that from Into Racing, and losing out. Derek Johnson is losing out in that traffic, unfortunately, going through the GT4 runners, having battles to the road. 12 GT3 runners, 17 GT4 runners, showing how the British GT Championship continues to grow and grow, and the racing gets better and better at the front, as certainly James Littlejohn really is pushing very hard. Rick Parfit is trying to get up onto the tail of Derek Johnson, so he too lost ground in the traffic. But the first two going great guns down to Dean. In fact, the GT4 entry, and their teammates, but in GT3 and GT4, you can see the difference behind them, the great big grandiose wing on the GT3. Macmillan AMR entry, advantage number 24, James Littlejohn being driving that very well indeed, doing everything he can to unsettle John Minshaw. And look at that fastest lap comparison, nearly half a second between the best fastest lap for Littlejohn.
So just looking to see as the Bentley has lost a spot there to the Aston Martin. It's hard just to tell the traffic.
I believe he's stayed in the same. He's got Duncan Cameron on his tail, so yes, he might have done. Has Farmer gone past? Yes, I think he has. So Farmer has used that traffic well.
Yep.
Again, you can sympathise, because quite simply, looking the long shot down School Straight behind the paddock, you could see cars all over the place, and for some drivers, yes, at the heat of the battle, they might not notice who's got a white screen strip. Billy with screen strip for GT3, or a black one for GT4, but Mark Farber regained it. You can just see there, in fact, one position ahead, and now in 6th place. You can still see Duncan Cameron in the green and silver Ferrari, behind him Lee Mole in the red and white AMG Tuning.com at Bentley.
But it's the battle.
Sorry, Mercedes.
It's a battle with the Bentley and the Ferrari. Duncan Cameron has looked high up, looked low down, works quite hard behind the wheel. The first time I've seen the onboard camera on the Ferrari with Matt Griffin. So the Bentley with Rick Parfit maybe a little bit easier. Certainly it's a car that has traditionally been what I would describe as very light on its feet. Again, well balanced chassis from M Sport. So down into Dean, a variety of lines, and of course now when you're coming up to the back markers, the GT4 cars and other GT3 cars that are now getting a lap put on them, just as the pace between the GT3 and GT4. Suddenly the Bentley looking to squeeze past as it gets past the GT4 Bentley.
Well, just to give you an example, as John Minshaw pushing on really hard, the difference between the GT4 Aston Martin in terms of horsepower and the GT3 is 200. 600 horsepower for the 6-litre V12 and 400 horsepower or thereabouts for GT4 entry, which has a 4.7 litre V8. But, of course, the GT3 runners getting up onto the tails of the GT4s for the first time was delayed by that safety car period, but now they're thick among them, and it's a case of who can work it best. Sam Tordoff, still see him in the blue and black Lamborghini tucked on the tail of Lee Mole's Mercedes. Duncan Cameron yo-yoing backwards and forwards in the traffic, but our first two really starting to pull clear. They're nearly over 5 seconds clear of Derek Johnson as John Minshaw, and James Littlejohn. Half a second covers them in the lead of this race. But can Littlejohn make a move down towards Dean Hairpin? They go there in 6th place and 7th place. A bit of a twitch there from Duncan Cameron as he started his braking. Lee Mole closing in, and Sam Tordoff, who started that number 6 Lamborghini just at the back of your shot there from 4th place, down not where he wants to be. He's outside the positions he should be. In fact, he's off time screen.
Well, Nemo in the Mercedes, he's in that situation that Duncan Cameron is in. They've been frustrated, but the gap between the Bentley and the Ferrari has again begun to open up. So we're seeing Rick Parfitt, now that he's got clear air and he can focus on what he needs to do, is able to use the Bentley. Oh, and there we see.
Well,
wow,
Mark Farmer's got it wrong.
That's all wrong.
So place gain suddenly for Parfitt, for Cameron, for Lee Mole, and just to reiterate, sorry, it's Liam Griffin in number 6, not Sam Tordoff.
Strange, I didn't expect anybody to lose it in Graceland, because it's not really one of those corners that maybe slightly offline. But anyway,
well, maybe.
Big spin, that's going to drop him down 6-7 places overall, but mainly in concern will be in his own category, GT3.
Yeah, so left of screen, Liam Griffin trying to tuck up the inside of Lee Mole, taking a very, very different line, a much tighter line onto the banking at the final corner, onto the start-finish straight, has gained him nothing, so still that blue, black Barwell Lamborghini stays in position. Oh dear, there's GT4 runner. Very much the jam in the sandwich between our race leader John Minshaw and James Littlejohn. Flashing lights down the inside to Yentwood he goes. And number 24 has to eke out whatever he can all over again. Phil Keane waiting middle of shot there to take over after the 1 hour mark, a good half hour away, to take over from the race leader John Minshaw. As I mentioned before the race, the last time anyone who won the opening 3 rounds of the British GT Championship was 2006. The last time anyone even won 3 races in a row was 2010. So it'll be quite a feat, but there's a long, long way to go. Only just now approaching 1/4 distance in this 2-hour race. Round 3 of the British GT Championship. Weather conditions fantastic at Rockingham. And John Watson and I very much enjoying what's going out on the circuit. Now, just been looking to see what's going on our timing screens, and I've just gathered a track limit. Should we tell you who's got a 5-second penalty for track limits?
No, I think you want to
exceeding. It's the oh no, they've blown his cover. There he is on your screen, Derek Johnston.
I think it's not so much Derek I'm concerned about. I'm thinking about when Johnny Adam takes over, he's got to worry about, oh no, my gentleman driver, my co-driver, not calling that, incurred a 5-second penalty for exceeding track limits. It's hard to tell where it was. Most likely, I suspect, maybe coming out of the Tarzan, that 90-degree corner. So there is the indication to the number 1, sorry, Derek Johnson's car, I beg your pardon, Aston Martin. So Derek Johnson in the number 1 Aston has got to carry that burden all the way through.
Well,
the second place Aston trying with James Littlejohn, yes, to get back onto close enough to put pressure on John Minshaw in the lead Lamborghini.
Now, just to reiterate, Derek Johnson's got that 5-second time penalty. He's running 3rd on the track, but that puts him 5th on the timing screens, behind Rick Parfitt Jr. and Duncan Cameron. So the Bentley number 31 goes up into, this is the GT4 battle. Kieran Haggerty still leading the way, but Will Tregertha in the white and blue number 55. Ginetta from HHAC Motorsport really fancies to go. One off, have to go right now. He'll still be behind as they come under the start-finish gantry. And Tregertha, who's done his racing in Ginettas over the years. A lot of drivers have come up through the Ginetta Juniors and some racing the GT5, but close at the start of the start-finish straight, nowhere by the time they get to the end. We've seen this before. The McLaren seemed very, very handy on the bank stuff.
That's just simply good squirt out of the final corner, and it just
change
pulls
of lead, John. Sorry, cutting over you there, because James Littlejohn, he's tried. He's about 0.6 of a second down. Maybe a bit of traffic blocked John Minshaw, didn't see, but James Littlejohn, we saw from the start of the race, if there was going to be a gap, he was going to go for it. And so he has.
Certainly he's made the overtake, and that's what he was hoping to do. He's got traffic ahead of him, so Minshaw might well use, if he is in a position to do so, that traffic to try and regain. Let's have a look and see where it is. Coming down into turn 2, and again it's slightly, Minshaw got slightly, I think he may have had to come out of the throttle because he wasn't sure where the GT4 car was going. But Littlejohn had no hesitation whatsoever, kept his foot well and truly in it, got alongside, fair and square, coming into Dean, took the position away, and you could see already the car, the GT4 that was being lapped almost overrunning the Lamborghini coming through Tarzan. So the grip the GT4 cars have got, they're easier and lighter on the tyres.
Well, more time penalties. Number one we know about. 69 is Harry Gottsacker. He went off early on. Don't forget we saw him being dragged out of the gravel. And Duncan Cameron, who was running in fourth place, but having been promoted by the time penalty for number one, now that's put him down to seventh. So the order is Little John Minshaw, Parfitt, Johnston. Johnston, of course, with that 5-second penalty, has moved up. Lee Mole is next, but how much tighter would you like your cars to be parked on the circuit? So had a change of position there. 100 is now behind 55. No, it's not. Sorry, that's the other. Oh, that's the other McLaren. So, whenever anyone points to the screen, you jump to conclusions, but having two cars the same livery. What we can tell you, that's the team ABBA Roll Centre Racing Mercedes with Richard Neary at the wheel, running in 11th place overall. His next target is the Aston Martin ahead of him with that spin. That was number 11, Mark Farmer, started outside of front row. Now he's being pushed very, very hard indeed by Parker Chase, young American racer.
So, and just throwing away a position like that, we didn't see what caused it, but certainly very damaging to that number 11 Aston. So Mark Farmer in 10th place, and John Barnes, who will be taking over the car, well, probably in about just under 30 minutes, certainly 27 or so minutes.
Right, now just to clarify, these are the GT4 leaders. That's the other of the Black Bull Garage 59 entries, and again it's still Kieran Haggerty racing very well indeed in the McLaren, but being pushed very hard indeed by Will Tregurtha. But time and again we've seen, once they go under the start-finish gantry, get down through turn one. The McLaren is so much fleeter through that banked left-hander. Look at the gap, it was only a car's length between them onto the start-finish straight. By the time they go through the bank left and get down to Dean, the double apex left-hand hairpin, it went out to about 5 car lengths, but again, under braking in the hairpin, the Ginetta better.
Yeah, I mean, it's a frustration when you know that you're being outperformed in a straight line. And I would say even if the Ginetta can get ahead of the McLaren coming on to the straight, by the time they get down through turn one and back down into Dean, the extra performance, straight line performance the McLaren has got would probably get it through again, back into the lead. So there's, looking at the 33 coming up to the GT4 Nissan 370Z, it gets out of the way, lets Minshaw go through cleanly. Gap between lead car and second place car now 2.8 seconds. But watch, dive up the inside into Tarzan, show your nose, but unless you're absolutely alongside. But again, the Ginetta's got so much better balance coming off these lower speed corners. This is the exit of Tarzan. Now you've got Rick Parfitt coming up behind in the GT3 Bentley. He wants to get through cleanly. He doesn't want to have anybody, Johnson, behind in the Aston Martin.
So it's quite hard at the moment to just work out who is exactly where. We can see where they are on the track, but the time penalty's been coming thick and fast. So it's Little John Minshaw. Parfitt now, look, here's a replay. Parfitt flashing his lights. Oh, Johnson very sideways, looking backwards from the number 1 Aston Martin. Thank you very much, said Rick Parfitt. I'll take that position. So Parfitt up into third place overall.
There's that battle again. The overtake from the Aston Martin, sliding up the inside of the lead GT4 car, has given the Ginetta that opportunity to get maybe a little bit closer on this lap with their battle for the lead of GT4 than he's previously had. So that's good news for the 55 of Tregurtha.
But Joel, one of the things we were talking about before the race, we've been looking at Derek Johnson and some of the drivers at the front end of the grid, some of the gentleman drivers, mentioning you can come to this championship at any age. But we're looking at the GT4 battle. That 55 Ginetta shared by two 17-year-olds. The car it's challenging has got a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old driver pairing, and it shows the benefits, particularly for Ginetta drivers. A lot of these drivers like Tregurtha and Middleton have been racing. This is their third full season in Ginettas, but they've stepped up to GT4, stepped up to the British GT Championship, and they're not looking foolish at all.
Not at all. I mean, you can see now the McLaren is almost, it was going to be a meet, but you've got also Duncan Cameron in the Ferrari looking to slide up the inside. Splits the battle for the lead of GT4. But again, Tregurtha can maybe use some of the Ferrari straight line performance to give it a bit of a toe down the straight. So stick as close as you can, but you can see immediately the Ferrari is on the throttle. Nothing that Ginetta can do. And the gap yet again is extended before they even come into turn one, as Cameron goes through and gets past, again, one of the Nissans
And you could almost see the cogs going in Will Tregertha's mind. I've got to stick with the Ferrari. Then you saw he just made a mistake and it washed wide, and any momentum he was starting to build.
What about my cogs? They're going just the same as if I was driving. But that's the way you have to think. You've got to think about not just the physical side of driving, but what can you do? Again, there's going to be an opportunity for Tregertha if he can get the Mercedes out of the way. So you've got the GT4 Nissan, the GT4 McLaren, the GT3. Watch Tregertha. He's going to come down the inside. No. Can't make it work.
Gosh,
he's got shuffled back by a couple of the GT3 cars muscling their way through. So he's got past the Nissan. He's still got an opportunity, because that's all you can hope for, is that the GT3 cars maybe force the competitor, the McLaren, slightly wide or slightly out of position. But again, when you come onto the straight line performance from the McLaren leading GT4, just a different level altogether.
Yeah, but it can work both ways. The GT4 cars can help the GT3s, and yin and yang, it goes the other way. But certainly for the 100, McLaren leading the way in GT4 with Kieran Haggerty at the wheel. He's gained just a little bit, but Will Tregertha again closes it down as he comes out of Brook onto the start-finish straight. This could be 10 laps ago, John, as the gap between them is half a second. But again, the McLaren is that little bit better through the bank corners on the wide-open expanse before they get to the twisty infield where the Ginetta seems to fight back. Look, so it's battle over there. It's 1 and a bit seconds, but under braking, the Ginetta comes and closes, and the more understeer as that McLaren eats its tyres down into D.
Bruce, go back to what we heard on the grid. And the Ginetta drivers across the board are hoping that the McLaren drivers across the board will, as they go further and deeper into their approximately 1 hour, just over 1 hour stint, find themselves just having had to use the tyre a little bit more than they would choose to do. You can see just how quick the Ginetta is here, right up onto the rear of the McLaren, coming through the fifth path now, up into the left at Gracelands. And would he have a little look down the inside? He might think about it, because this is an opportunity coming into Tarzan. Can he make the undercut dive down the inside? He thought about it, and he was almost prepared to commit, but didn't have quite the track position to make it work.
Well, maybe he's just having a little look, saving it for a future lap. But this is one of the joys of multi-mark racing, just lapping up the differences in the performance and the way they deliver it between the McLaren 570S and the Ginetta G55. Out of Brook onto the start for them of the banking as they double left, keep curving left onto the banking as they go under the start-finish gantry, now turn into turn 1, banking to the left, and again that 100 McLaren pulls its way clear. 19 in the pits, so that shouldn't be there. Century Motorsport. Parker Chase started that, young American racer, 16-year-old. We'll be handing over to Charlie Robertson.
Closer this time, so the gap between the McLaren and the Ginetta coming into Dean, that's as close as it's been. So that means that he's got more options, because the Ginetta is quicker on the infield than the McLaren. So he's got, not coming round this rather long Yentwood into, well, that was actually Chapman Curve, now into the Piff Path. I still think the best place he has got on the track will be a move. He alluded to it coming into
this is great.
Wrong side of the racetrack. He's got to get himself up onto the inside to try and make a move down in Tarzan. But the McLaren just has got that little bit of straight line squirt. But look to see if he's going to make a punt down the inside. Can he get it? Yes, he has. And he's going to have better grip. The McLaren, all it can try to do is get up alongside on the exit. It's got the straight line speed, but may not be sufficient, because he's going to have to go the long way around as they come up into this sequence of Brook, a left, a right. But the problem that the Ginetta's got, as soon as he sees this main straight and the horsepower advantage that McLaren has got, all that great work, great racing will be for nothing.
But as Mark Farmer fights his way back in the TF Sport GT3, nearly had the same bit of track down into turn 1. We were just wondering if that might happen, and around the outside track, hang on to what had been the leading GT4, but only recently gained side by side. Now better under braking will be the Ginetta, but he's on the outside, and is there going to be space? Certainly Haggerty's got his nose back in front in the Garage 59 McLaren. It's got to be done all over again, and here comes Rick Parfitt Jr. He doesn't want them battling in front of him. Well, tough luck, Rick, you've got them battling.
Yeah, but what's happening is the McLaren is being forced to use the tyre more, and you can see Parfitt slides up the inside, and that was frustration and compromise for the McLaren. So once again, it's the Ginetta versus the McLaren, and whether he will be able to cover That is, the McLaren can cover the run down into Tars, and that's where the overtake took place.
Well, it'd be frustrating because
Yes.
Richard Neary's just dived up to split them, but it's just a matter of time before he'll be able to make it again. I thought the move would be a repeat this time around, but Richard Neary in the big Abbo Roll Centre Mercedes in the GT3 class sticks himself between the GT4 class leading battle between the McLaren of Kieran Haggerty and the hard-trying Will Tregurtha. Oh, someone's locked up down to Brook.
It's gone off.
Well,
That's-
number 4, yeah, well, they're 48, I think, has gone off the track. Just trying to work out who that might be. We might head off to a quick commercial break and let you know who it is when we return. But before then, so just well, that's on the exit of Graceland. I can see the yellow flags waving away, looking to see where the car is to be in its recovery. On the infield, just waiting to clear it up. So look how the gap's gone out in the GT4 class lead. Kieran Haggerty benefited, of course, from Richard Neary putting the big ABBA Roll Centre Mercedes between them and then pulling clear. So Will Tregurtha in the background has got it all to do. Overall, though, it's Little John leading the race by nearly 5 seconds now, having got the lead, hard-earned as it was, from John Minshaw. Worked the traffic well. Rick Parfitt Jr. running in third overall and Lee Mole in fourth. But the battle for GT4 honours could hardly be closer. Still, Kieran Haggerty leading the way, but only just 11th place overall from Will
I mean,
Tregurtha.
you can see how quickly the Ginetta can close back up to the tail of the McLaren, and the third place, second of the Ginettas, also now basically. So
It's
waiting to
43,
see.
that
yeah,
one.
it's to Finder. So it may
So-
well be a safety car. We have to wait and see whether that's going to be the case or not. It's sufficiently far off track. There's the safety car waiting. The light is flashing, so we think that may be a safety car intervention just to make sure.
Just waiting to see where the leader is around the circuit. That's the Bentley in third
Safety
place.
car has been deployed.
Safety car still sitting, lights flashing, ready to go. There is our race leader, James Littlejohn. He can see the waved yellow flags around the circuit. And it was the 43. So, race leader James Littlejohn, he's worked very hard to work his way to the front, leading the way for Macmillan AMR. He's got clear of John Minshaw in the car that won the first 2 rounds of the championship. But with the safety car about to come out, let's go to a very quick commercial break. Round the banking onto the start-finish straight. Safety car, you can see the board being displayed on the gantry, the waved yellow flags. There is our race leader, and don't forget, James Littlejohn in the 24 Aston Martin had a lead of, let's call it 5 seconds between friends over John Minshaw. That will come down under the safety car to the benefit of John Minshaw in the number 33 Lamborghini, but it's listed as 10.3 seconds, so I don't quite understand how it went out that much. Safety car is around the back half of the circuit, waiting to pick up James Littlejohn, who's just turning through turn 3. That's Yentwood. And the safety car is running through pit path very slowly. He needs to wave a few people past. He is waving a few people past. Glad to see they've understood. The next car that should approach his tail is not the one he wants, but it's the one after that. So it'll be our race leader, James Littlejohn. One more car about to be waved past.
Problem is, the car ahead on the road is now slowed down to the safety car, so the safety car has got one car between itself and the race. So this now been waved through. So now we've got the safety cars picked up race leader, so the Ginetta that's just been waved through will be allowed to continue around more or less at whatever its pace has been until we've now got the safety car with James Littlejohn, and he'll have John Minshaw very quickly closing that 10-second gap. But again, he's got 2 cars between himself.
One of which is the GT4 teammate, also from Macmillan.
So that's going to
AMR.
be no advantage.
And it's worth pointing out that James Littlejohn started this race 8th on the grid, was very quickly up to 3rd place, certainly looking positive, and then worked his way ever closer to the front until he hit the front. But he spent a long time planning his move. Now, let us just look at this field of car. The car in 2nd place overall is the Lamborghini that's just crossed the start-finish line in 4th place in that order. Right behind is Rick Parfitt Jr. in the Team Parker Racing Bentley, who's benefited from all this shuffling around. A few drivers have had driver penalties, and that's certainly affected the driver who started from pole in the number 1 Aston Martin, Derek Johnson. He is now down in 5th place behind Lee Mole's Mercedes. So we've talked about the top 3 finishers last time having extra time added to their pit stops, but these 5-second driver penalties have been costly for exceeding track limits.
Yes, I mean, it's okay, you can say, oh, sorry, I didn't mean it, but there are parts of the racetrack, and I think the exit of Tarzan is one of those, where track limits are easily exceeded.
Welcome back to round 3 of the British GT Championship. We were waiting for number 43 to be cleared up. It is being cleared up and rejoining the circuit. That was the Century Motorsport entry in the GT4 class, Steve Fresel. That is now back on the circuit, and that's good. That means the safety car period should be a short one. But for our race leader, for James Littlejohn in the Macmillan AMR, number 24 Aston Martin, it's been frustrating. He was sitting on a lead of around 5 seconds when the safety car, they thought it was coming out. It seemed to go out to 10 seconds. But the gap between himself and the chaser is that green and bright red Lamborghini. It's two cars between them from the GT4 class. They should be dispatched very quickly when it's restarted. But all the hard work that James Littlejohn put in has been somewhat scuppered.
Yes, and I think John Minshaw needs to, okay, the safety car is still on circuit and we'll probably have another lap, but he needs to get that gap between himself and the 2 GT4 cars to a minimum, because once this track goes green, he doesn't need to allow Littlejohn that opportunity to get clear air and use it to his best advantage.
Well, John, you might wonder why we're waiting. The car is going again. That's number 43. But we're just waiting for probably one more lap behind the safety car as that the lifting vehicle is moved to safety to the side of the circuit. In fact, we just saw it being pretty much at the point it needs to park. So a chance to see 29 starters for round 3 of the British GT Championship. The Lamborghini that won the first 2 rounds at Alton Park is number 33, just going down into the Dean hairpin, right behind Rick Parfitt Jr. It's worth pointing out that Parfitt in the Bentley does not add extra time to its pit stop, but the success at Alton Park leads to 20 seconds longer. That 33 Lamborghini is going to have to be at a standstill. The first pit stops come just after the 1 hour mark, between 1 hour exactly and 1 hour and 10 minutes. All the AM drivers, this is a change for 2017, have to do the full hour. It would have been quite a workout for them. They would have been thankful for the 2 safety car periods, because it would have given them a bit of a breather. But right now, John Minshaw will be thinking what he's got to do before the minimum time that he's allowed to have in the car comes to an end, and he'll hand over to Phil Keane. Phil will be getting being fed bits of red meat in the pit garage, ready to go out. But certainly with 2 wins under their belt from the first 2 races for 2017, the Barwell Lamborghini crew looking very strong indeed. But
Bruce, whatever way you look at it, that additional 20 seconds in the pit lane on top of your mandatory 120 seconds is going to be an eternity. And I mean, Phil Keane has been outstanding in GT, he's outstanding even in other forms of motorsport. To get that 20 seconds back is going to be a mammoth task.
Yes, you really rather feel he's going to need a safety car working to his advantage. So green flag is waved to safety car period. It's over, and James Littlejohn floors the throttle. 2 GT4 cars make a run at it under the start-finish gantry, but then comes the second place car overall, the Lamborghini of John Minshaw, right behind, trying to see if he can take an advantage. They go past the GT4 runners, coming into our side. In second place overall is the green-nosed Lamborghini. Can the Aston Martin from GT4 stay out of the way? It has, driven very well indeed. Rick Parfitt Jr. now needs to get past that Aston Martin, and very quickly, doesn't appear to have managed to do so.
Briefly on board with Duncan Cameron, but there we see the lead, Aston Martin, and then second place, there's third place. So 1, 2, 3 covered probably by about 4 seconds as they come down into this long, they call it pit path. It's a sort of kind of double left-hand apex. Opens up on the exit, which means it's a little bit easier on the tyres. And further through the field we see the number 1 car, the car that initially led this race, Derek Johnson, and he's having to deal with traffic. As we go back, you see the Ferrari, which is now pushing right on the tail of what was the leading Aston Martin. So Cameron and Johnson have got a battle on board.
Well, we've got our 2 onboard camera cars together. Number 1 looking backwards and 21 midnight. Flip over to there. Look forwards. How about that? So we do. So there's the back of Derek Johnson's Aston. Duncan Cameron trying to see what he can do, but at a very fiddly, can't say I like the Brook corner, but anyhow, onto the start-finish straight. You can see the name of the circuit, Rockingham, writ large on the walls as they accelerate hard. Great work here, looking backwards.
Aston Martin again gets onto the bank part of the circuit. The rubber that's been thrown up from the rear, that's just shards of rubber that come off in the course of a race, but the Venturi effect from the aerodynamics in the back of the Aston Martin chucking up loads of it into the air intakes.
Wow.
No, that's what I'm saying. You can see it now, you're looking at it. You can, and that's all potentially getting into the air intakes, the brake air intakes. You know, that's something when they make the pit stop. Somebody needs to go down and run the hand across the grill to make sure they clear away all those rubber shards.
Yes, that's extraordinary. Less than an hour of racing has been completed. Just so much rubber down on the banking continues to be fired out. This is a fantastic camera angle. Duncan Cameron trying to see what he can do. He'll be handing over to a driver who knows how to drive a Ferrari extremely well in Matt Griffin. And Derek Johnson doesn't exactly have a shabby teammate either, does he? In Johnny Adam, a works Aston Martin driver who is busy, almost got even bigger lumps of rubber there, John.
I mean, there's a lot of rubber around the racetrack, and it's only really from seeing that rearward camera shot from the number one Aston Martin that you just realise how much rubber there is around the racetrack. And as I say, that contact with the Nissan and the 66, which is Parker Racing. That's the Porsche. Yeah, so it gets spun around.
Well, that was poor old Tim Eakin, who had a spin in the opening round at Alton Park, and that was an assist. So I'm afraid one of the two Ultratech RJN cars really having to work it now. Chance to see the GT4 tusslers all over again, and it's still advantage to the 100 McLaren, which is Kieran Haggerty ahead of Will Tregurtha in the 55. Ginetta, just trying to see actually how much further back down the track is Alex Reed, who's giving chase in the Lannon Racing Ginetta as well, but still a fantastic battle for GT4 honours, running in 11th and 12th positions overall. Yeah, the Lannon Racing Ginetta is now very close indeed to the 55. 55 is second on the 50.
So
54 is still where it went around.
Stuck down at Tarzan. Let's have a look again and see. Just very, very light contact. You can see the Cayman just tags the rear of the Nissan.
That was Nick Jones in the Team Parker Racing Porsche Cayman, the only one in this race. I expect we might have some more of those in time to come, but for the Nissan driver, very unfortunate for him. Tim Eakin comes over born in Northern Ireland but lives in Malaysia and comes over for his racing.
As you do. So the battle going through the field of GT4s mixing with GT3s. Again up into Tarzan, and we're seeing this battle that's been really raging on pretty much the entire duration of the race. We're now 54 minutes or so into the race.
But it's a three-way battle. The red roof on the white Ginetta, that's Alex Reed. He'll be handing over to David Pittard, and he could be handing over a car in a very competitive position. But that Lannon Racing entry number, we're just looking at there, number 51, has a 20-second extra stationary time at the pit stop. How close would you like your lead battle to be in GT4? Right behind, we have another challenger as well. Graham Johnson, champion in that class last year, is joining in. So it's a McLaren leading from 3 Ginettas. We can see 2 of them there, and certainly Alex Reed now starting to challenge down the outside. It's not the place to be for the turn-in, but if we can have Will Tregurtha being slightly delayed on the exit by the McLaren, which he isn't, things could be changing and changing fast.
Yes, Alex Reed has just worked away quietly, got himself into position, so the top 4, top 5 all pretty much now in line astern, with the McLaren leading this group of cars. And again, he's got all these little Ginettas. So every corner they're trying to sneak under it, over it, round it, and I would have to say maybe over the top of it, but up through.
But what it's producing, John, is that they are all slowing each other down that little bit.
No. The McLaren's slowing them all down.
Yeah. Fair enough, but what we're seeing, of course, it was a 4-way, a 3-way battle, a 2-way, a 3-way, a 4-way, and now in 5th place in the class with green flashes on his wing. The 4th Ginettas is Sam Webster. So the next car back, I'm trying to look at the back of the shot, it should be Will Moore in his McLaren, but it's, I think we can call that a 5-way battle right now.
Yeah, but the difficulty is that the McLaren has got the performance where it really matters. It can defend around the tight, twiddly bits of the circuit. Once it gets onto the main straight, it's just got so much performance. Johnny Adam gets himself ready. Got so much performance that it's able to pull away, and it allows the McLaren that momentary, that you can see how much the gap has opened up. Now, Alex Reed behind, he's thinking, how can I get past and maybe I can do a better job getting past the McLaren, but it's not going to be easy.
Graham Johnson, very, very good under braking in the fourth car in that group because he lost contact a bit. He was made a bit of a mistake going onto the straight. That allowed Sam Webster to catch him, but Johnson super strong on the brake. So Sam Tordorf, I decided he started the race. They flipped it round. It was Liam Griffin who started the number 6 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, but certainly British touring car star in the past, Sam Tordorf, who loves his GT racing, ready for his slice of racing action as we continue to look at the GT4 battle. Someone's
Derek
kicked up
Thompson, has
some
he
dirt.
been off the track? Somebody has been off somewhere.
Just looking to see if there was a Brook. I'm trying to see if anyone did it ahead of him, but
Again, look at the
like
amount
a machine
of,
gun.
I can't believe how much rubber.
and a bit of gravel, I might suggest as well.
There's a load of gravel indeed, as you say, coming from the under tray and the diffuser, and that's not much fun for the Mercedes that's following. He's actually pulled out of the and
under braking. Wow.
Unbelievable amount of, and he gets up alongside. Can the Aston still got the track position? Get on the throttle a little bit earlier, and again, I mean, it's not just gravel; it looks like rocks coming out from the under tray of the Aston.
But at that moment, if you're Lee Mole in the red Mercedes, you must be thinking, now's my chance. But actually, I'm about to have a pit stop. Do I want to throw it away in a risky move? The answer is no, I would suggest at this point. He'll be handing that over to Ryan Ratcliffe, young Welsh racer.
But Lee Mole has lost the opportunity because it was going to happen on the lap following that off from Johnson.
Well, here's a replay, John, and we're just looking at effectively the bottom half of the top 6 in the GT4.
Wow.
That's where the gravel came from. That's the turn into Brook.
Wow.
Cameron goes past as they go out onto the banking and still probably coughing, spluttering, trying to regather his breath.
Well,
Derek Johnston.
I mean,
that was deep.
that was an Olympic 10-meter board dive. I mean, that was big time off into the gravel. Lucky he didn't do any damage to the splitter on the front of the car.
Well,
he did dig up a ton of the gravel.
I will present a lot of drivers with a bit of a surprise. And apparently the lap before, I've just heard a little bird in my ear saying that Derek Johnson was given a little tap up the rear by Duncan Cameron. So maybe he was just looking to check where Duncan was. In fact, it was Lee Mole. It was Duncan Cameron right behind, and just missed his braking point. But anyhow, he's got away with it. But certainly he'll have left a few surprises around the first couple of corners. Back to the world of GT4. We've had two place changes, because from 4th to 3rd and 5th to 4th means the car that was 3rd has gone back to 5th, if you follow me. That's Alex Reid has lost out to Sam Webster, and also Graham Johnson has gone past, so it keeps on changing. And the bright green orange car is Graham Johnson. He knows his way around these Ginettas, but does anyone know a way around the McLaren? The answer is no at the moment.
Well, nothing that a couple of hundred horsepower wouldn't make any difference to.
We forget, though, of course, Stuart Middleton will be taking over soon, but Will Tregurtha did fleetingly move up to the lead in the class, but then within half a lap was back behind. The speed down the straight of the McLaren kept Kieran Haggerty there.
He's also under attack. He ran deep into Dean Corner and almost lost the position to Johnson following him, the red Ginetta. So all the way through this part of the racetrack, we've seen it throughout this race where the Ginettas are able to run up to the tail of the McLaren. So that's
right.
Look back.
Prepare for a shock. You're looking back from number 1 of our camera cars. Bit of an early clip.
Well, no, there's no contact.
No, that was
whatsoever.
the previous lap was the lap with contact, but you could see Cameron disappearing from view. But by this point, he's nipped up the inside through the tight left of the start-finish straight. Next, behind and prepared to be shot at is the AMD Mercedes of Lee Mole. Now, Graham Johnson really in that 5:01 Ginetta fancies the lead in GT4. Coming up, well, we're 20 seconds away from the 1 hour mark, at which point the pit lane will be open for a 10-minute pit stop window. But what a fantastic 5-way battle. 1 McLaren, 4 Ginettas fighting over the honours, and certainly it's been a hard stint for number 100 for Kieran Haggerty, because Will Tregurtha, who's having a look up the inside and maybe will get the power down better, but when it comes to power on the start-finish straight, he doesn't have the answers to the McLaren. That turbo V8 just giving the grunt out of that final corner. And down by turn 1, he's 4-5 car lengths clear.
And the rest, it's almost double that by the time they get down. We go back to our race leader, James Littlejohn, just driving around absolutely at his own pace and into the first car we've seen.
First instance, first chance to go in, race leader James Littlejohn coming in to hand over to young Jack Mitchell. And it seems so slow when a driver gets into the pit lane, but it's a mandatory limit. It's the same for all of them. And of course, any transgression there. In fact, we've already got one of the Ultratech Nissans in there. And
that's maybe the one that was tagged.
And the Team Parker race, yes, indeed.
So
the Team
Minchel
Parker
well.
Racing Porsche. So yes, all the top runners. See Derek Johnson in the background coming in the number 1 Aston Martin, Duncan Cameron, Lee Mole, the whole lot.
You have to say, Bruce,
Why?
You would, wouldn't you?
Yes, of course. You
bring
AM driver.
your gentleman driver, AM driver in. Derek Johnson comes in. He's had that expensive and exciting trip through the gravel.
He's got rid of it all. It's not sitting on the front splitter anymore.
No, he's got rid of the
goes
gravel.
Johnny Adam. But
hold on, he's got rid of the gravel. He hasn't got rid of all the straw. That's got to be cleared out as well.
No drivers on board at the moment. The refueling is going on in the background. You can see Jack Mitchell waiting to take over. But extra pit stop time. The number 1 Aston Martin has extra 15 seconds. John Minchell, the car we're looking at now, has an extra 20 seconds. That Bentley, no extra pit stop time, could emerge in the lead of... Sorry, of course, James Littlejohn doesn't have any end. So 24 should go back into the lead of the race effectively. But Rick Parfitt Jr., having handed over his car, could vault up the order to Seb Morris.
Well, actually, what we're going to have is the pit lane with the entire grid and probably nothing or very little on the racetrack. Well, ironically, due to these long 2-minute pit stops plus additional times for those that are in the top 3 at Oulton Park.
Well, signals being given to Phil Keane, can't go yet. And looking out of our window across the Rockingham Speedway, only half a dozen cars out on the circuit, refueling done, tyres done. Sit and wait. 2 minutes precisely from pit in to pit out is the limit. James Littlejohn came in first. He's handed over Jack Mitchell. He doesn't have to spend extra time in the pit stop because he wasn't one of the top 3 placers after the opening 2 rounds at Oulton Park. So the number 24, Aston Martin, back into the lead of the race. Ryan Ratcliffe has already got on the move. And so in the AMD... Oh, he's gained a position. So the AMD Mercedes is coming out of the pits ahead of the Spirit of the Race Ferrari, but out on the circuit, Jack Mitchell.
Yeah, Jack Mitchell, and the next car making its way down the pit lane will be the Lamborghini, and that will be a very, very interesting scenario.
Well,
because
come out in about 7th place, I reckon.
I think he has come in 2nd place. Or is that the
7th place, I think.
7th place. There's the Ferrari now, Matt Griffin. So he's behind the Mercedes that was driven by Lee Mole, and that will be Ryan Ratcliffe behind the wheel. So Matt Griffin has got a job to do, and they will want to try and nail the Mercedes. There's not a lot of difference from what I've seen here so far. There's the car that was leading the GT4 category in the pits, and can the Ginettas turn it around and get out ahead of the McLaren? That's their best hope this afternoon, to try and take victory in GT4.
Yeah, but the number 100 McLaren doesn't have any extra time to be held in the pits. Their pit stops are even longer than the GT3s. Instead of a mandatory 2 minutes, it's 2 minutes 35 seconds. But no extra performance time penalties in the pits for the 100. Now we're riding with Matt Griffin, seeing what he can do about Ryan Ratcliffe. Good pit stop sequence there for the AMD tuning team. Getting the Mercedes out just ahead of the Spirit of Race Ferrari, but Matt Griffin knows these 488s like very few other drivers, and he's tucked in under the tail seats. Have a bit more punch coming onto the start-finish straight. Can Ratcliffe hold on? You don't really make a move into turn 1. You just try and get your momentum, get what slipstream you have. This is battling for GT4s to leave the pits one at a time, please, gentlemen. The 100 McLaren has got out just ahead of the Matt Chapman, number 63 Ginetta. Really fancied his chances of getting out into the lead of GT4. Looks so the 100 McLaren has just managed to do it. And the move has been made by Matt Griffin, didn't happen to see it.
I saw it was down into Dean. He got track position, he just used the slipstream from the Mercedes, launched it down the inside, and you have to do it at the earliest opportunity. The longer you would be sitting behind, the less chance you've got of making that clean move. So, whoa, Matt, behave yourself. You don't need to be exploring the outer limits of the infield here at Rockingham. We've seen already track limits. The penalty, that I wouldn't imagine would count as a track penalty. It's more likely to be abuse of track limits on the outside. Here we see again how that position changed. Just perfect off the bank button of the circuit. Used the McLaren that was coming out and then just got away up the inside of the Mercedes. I mean, very little resistance and fairness from Jack Ratcliffe in the Mercedes.
Yeah, no, Ryan noticed that Matt Griffin had
Ryan, yes.
His brother, all the same name. And he noticed that the Ferrari was that little bit punchier onto the start-finish straight, and the move was going to come, and he, as you say, didn't see any need to have the two of them taken out of the race. So look at the pace that Matt Griffin is pulling away. We saw on the last lap when he ran off the circuit a little bit that he's really got the hammer down, but they're fighting over, well, we're trying to tell you exactly where they are in class. Because
Fifth place.
Fifth place, because some of the others have not made their pit stops. Now in the pits, listed as a race leader, but he's sitting in the pits, is the number 11 Aston Martin. We're waiting for that to go back out, and our screens will settle down, because the 6 cars that didn't come in on 1 hour mark exactly seem to have reported into the pits since then.
Car number 1, that was the car that was driven by Derek Johnson, showing as 9th Johnny Adams now. An awful lot he needs to do to drag that car from 9th all the way up. And as we look at what's going on with, now we've got the Lamborghini, and that's got Phil Keane. So that is the area where probably track abuse has been happening. So Phil Keane.
Well, we've just seen Phil Keane on track. Let's find out from the driver who started the car, John Minshaw.
Well, I have to say, John, when I came over and said, come on, let's have a chat, you were like, oh, I can't be bothered, really. You were sat there. Now, I'm assuming that's not because you're tired. I think that might be frustration.
No, I'm a little fatigued, actually. It's quite warm out there. But the car was very good. Just a little bit frustrated that the second safety car came out, because the plan was to try and build some sort of lead over as many people as we could, and I think we probably, if that car hadn't come out, we might have come out 3rd or 4th. But it is as it is. I think we're 8th. So it's all to do. Today's about points.
Right. In terms of you and the Aston, though, you said you thought you had the legs on it, and all of a sudden, Derek Johnson just seemed to dropped off to sleep, so to speak.
I don't know. I think maybe
you sort of passed him.
He went out on new tyres. I went out on new tyres, and I think he was probably. It looked like he was maybe a little bit harder on his tyres than I was, and I just waited. And he, after the first safety car, he looked a bit tatty coming out of 1 or 2 corners, and I seized the chance. I got a better traction out of I can't remember which corner it was now, but better traction, and managed to ease past him.
Great, thank you. Go and have a rest. Thanks very much, John Minshaw.
Good work from Gary down there with John Minshaw, and yeah, John did look as though he'd worked very hard indeed, but knowing that he and his race partner Phil Keane had to have a pit stop 20 seconds longer than the majority of runners, those safety car periods, John, were just what they didn't want. They needed all the full speed racing laps they could possibly get.
Yes, but unfortunately safety car interventions are a part of motorsport. You can't factor them in. All you can try and do is use, wow. That's a little bit risky, taking that manoeuvre. Jack Mitchell just flirting with the outside. Luckily, everything is so dry these days. If that had been a normal spring day, the side of the track might have been a little damper, and that would have caused you bigger troubles than you would ever want to handle.
So worth reiterating, 24 came in from the lead with James Littlejohn. Jack Mitchell has taken it over. No extra time in the pit for them. Rick Parfitt Jr.'s head has sprung a leak by the looks of things. He worked hard in that Bentley. He's handed over to Seb Morris. Seb is now in 2nd place, so that pushing was well worth. And looking at the last lap time, he is starting to close. Could this be a win? Still 50 minutes of this race remaining, but let's see how Seb Morris can close in. They didn't have the greatest time up at Alton Park. A few contretemps, but certainly the 31 crew is looking very good indeed as it chases after the 24 Aston Martin, leading by 4.5 seconds now. And when he gets his breath back, Rick Parfitt will have to look out, because there could be a Gary Champion on the prowl.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it was a good drive by Rick. He was very busy all the way through his stint. So we're now seeing that Bentley with Seb Morris, and he needs to look to find those little tenths here and there. He's got 50 minutes remaining in this race. Last time they came across the line, it was 4.5 seconds. So it is achievable. Seb Morris marginally quicker over the last lap and a bit since he's taken over the wheel, compared to the lead Aston Martin, Jack Mitchell. There is the Aston Martin waiting for the Bentley to come in. There is the Bentley, but again, that little bit of traffic, not a problem, because those are 2 GT4 cars, so he should clear those relatively quickly. But right now, the advantage to Jack Mitchell is that he's got clear track ahead of him.
Certainly has, but it's also worth pointing out, John, the last time around, you never know where the traffic was slightly affected them. 1 second quicker. But the quickest driver on the circuit, the quickest all weekend, is Phil Keane. We thought he was quite a handy driver in that number 33 Lamborghini from Barwell Motorsport, and his best lap 1 minute. Wow, he's on the move. He's in 6th, we'll tell you that.
The problem is he's 20 seconds behind the lead Aston Martin. He's doing stunning laps, but can he find 20 seconds in, 49 minutes? And if you drive the car really hard now, what will you have left in the tyres?
Well, there's a question. Seb Morris gained a second on the last lap, gained a second the lap before. The lead advantage for Jack Mitchell down to under 3.5 seconds. There they are, in shot. Turning right at Yentwood is the Aston Martin leading the way. Now going through that right-hander, the number 31 Bentley. Seb Morris on the move. Clear track between them, but no doubt they will find some traffic up ahead at some point, as I look to see, pick them out where they are on the circuit. Going through Piff Paff now is our race leader, giving chase. And the man who's fastest of all out on the circuit at the moment, running 6th. His next target will be Sam Tordoff in the sister Lamborghini, the number 6 Lamborghini, but the driver fastest on track at the wheel of the 33 Lamborghini is Phil Keane. No surprises. So Jack Mitchell going great guns. He's still leading the race, but the Bentley's closing in. Let's find out from the driver with Gary, James Littlejohn.
Well, he's out of the car and leading man, as they say in theatre world.
Yeah, we well, to be honest, we started quite far back on the grid, so had a lot of work to do, but had a really good start. I think I was up to P3 or P4 into turn 1, and then I just sort of played the patient game, waited for the traffic, and then made a couple of moves to take the lead. A bit of a shame about the safety cars. We sort of lost a few seconds. Jack's still leading, but I think we're carrying a little bit more weight than the other Astons, and obviously being silver pairing the other cars. So we'll see if he can fend off the other pros out there.
John Minshaw commented as well about the safety car. A little bit of frustration, I think, throughout all of you drivers, really.
Agreed. Yeah, I think the first safety car. I can't even remember now. I can't remember if it hurt John or it hurt me. The second safety car definitely, definitely affected my gap. Obviously, I managed to keep a couple of GT4 cars between John and I, so that helped me at the restart. And then I managed to sort of just create a bit of a gap before the pit stops. But
now, can your teammate keep the Bentley away? That's what I want to know.
I think he can, yeah. He's Jack's very fast. He's faster than me this weekend in qualifying. Yeah, I mean, don't forget, Jack's carrying an extra bit of weight over the Bentley, so we're at a bit of a disadvantage there. Obviously, here you've got the banking, you've got a lot of straight line speed, and also, tyre wear's a factor over an hour stint. So yeah, we'll see if Jack can hold on, but I'm sure he'll make that Aston as wide as he can.
Okay. I hate to tell you, I've just been told it's 1.8 seconds, but you're going to punch me in a minute because I'm just making a negative statement here with you all the time. I'll go away and let's see if it all goes well.
Yeah, I think if we can, we want to score some points this weekend. Obviously, we're in a good position at the minute. I think Jack can keep the lead, but I'm not. The weights really makes it difficult. So we'll see.
Okay, thanks very much. I know all about weight. Let's go back to Bruce Jones.
Run, Gary, run, after those statements. So off he goes. But is the Aston Martin going to stay in the lead for long? Because certainly Jack Mitchell's doing his utmost, but Seb Morris is putting in a fantastic run in that Bentley, closing in. Just trying to see behind. Matt Griffin is the next one in that grouping. Just trying to see if he's at back of shot. But there, 24, our race leader, diving inside the Lannon Racing Ginetta. Two Bentleys together, but it's the 31 we need to look at, because Seb Morris has been really strong.
Seb Morris, since he's gotten behind the wheel of the Bentley, has taken, initially it was about a 5 and a bit second deficit to the lead car. Now he's got it down to just under 2 seconds. Traffic, of course, is going to interfere with the momentum of both cars, because first of all, Jack Mitchell had to get through them. Now Seb Morris is going to do the same thing. But of course, the straight line performance of the GT3 car, you can see how much more horsepower the V8 Bentley engine has. Twin turbo, of course, gets past the Ginetta. The Aston Martin still probably got that 2 second lead over the second place. Again, traffic now down as they come into Dean. The Aston cleared one of the cars, but has got the second to get through, coming up into the left-hander at Yentwood. Look again, rubber all over the racetrack, but looking to see where Matt Griffin is. He's currently 6.7 seconds behind in third place on the second place car, 8.3 seconds behind the lead car.
Don't get confused, you can see the green and silver Ferrari, Matt Griffin stuck behind a Bentley. It's not behind Seb Morris's, it's the sister car, Callum McLeod at the wheel, not that far behind.
Who was confused?
No, I wasn't, was I? But anyhow, that one's a lap down. He's in the grouping, but certainly you feel sure that the driver here, we're riding, looking forward from Matt Griffin's windscreen.
So Matt Griffin, again, I'll go back to this battle. Now you see first and second as you see them on the road. The gap was 1.8 seconds. It's probably again in that area. Matt Griffin in the bend, the Ferrari trying to get past the sister Bentley, struggling at that part of racetrack. You've just got to be patient.
Well, we've heard from Seb Morris doing great things on the track. Let's hear from Rick Parfitt.
Is this the lucky charm? Don't go away. You might be the lucky charm. The gap's closing. It's all down to you, we think. It's not down to you.
No, she is my lucky charm. Rach is, she's never actually missed a race, and she wasn't feeling particularly well yesterday, but so she drove to be here this morning, and she is absolutely my lucky charm. It's wonderful to be here.
I can't work out who's more nervous. You're both sort of stood there, gripping each other's hands, watching the screen, watching the times. Not quite tumble, but they're coming down, Rick.
Well, if anyone's ever in doubt how much it means, this is an emotional sport, and I can't tell you how tough that was. That was without a doubt the toughest drive since I was in GT4 going around Brands. It was so hot in the car, and in the last 5 to 10 minutes I was just seeing pins and needles, and I was literally concentrating to drive corner to corner. It was so difficult, and as you might have seen, the grip levels out there are just nothing. It's like driving on ice. And so I was back to my karting days. It was quite interesting because I was driving it like a go-kart, and Minshaw, you can see his years of historics racing his E-Type and stuff, because he was absolutely sideways everywhere. I mean, absolute kudos. He was driving really well, and it was just really interesting to see the different strengths. Our car was much faster through the flowy stuff and on the brakes, but of course we cannot compete with their traction out of the corners. And so, but this is a game where you have to think about the bigger picture, and I knew that they had success penalty, we didn't, and so I knew that I had to bring a good car back to Seb, and I thought that where we were, it stands us in good stead, and obviously we're in second, and he's right behind now, and he's got a lot of time to make the move, so this is a good situation. But every year I've come here, we've never won, every single year, so I'm not counting any chickens just yet.
You've got 42 minutes just to stand there and be nervous.
42 minutes there for something to go wrong, yeah, absolutely. But a testament to what an amazing championship this is. The cars are all amazing. It's so nice to see everyone here as well. And Rockingham in the sunshine is truly a fantastic place to be. And so very happy to be here. And my wife, obviously.
And your lucky charm. She's here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, look at that. Look, that's very sweet. I have to say as well, I mean, if we take a look at the screen and see some of the action that's going out there, the times, I can't say they're tumbling, but the times are coming down between you and the Aston. The Aston, as you say, has got that weight issue. There's also, we've got a Ferrari coming up as well behind. You just take a look at these pictures. I know they're breaking up slightly here. That's our fault because of the radio camera. But you're just standing here watching your car, knowing you've done all you can. Do you feel a little bit helpless now?
Do you know, absolutely. But the thing is, I've always said I'm not that concerned about the result as long as I know I've done the best I have. And this year is the second year with the Bentley. I know the car better, the team knows Seb and I better. And, in this game, of course, with all the weight penalties and the success penalties that come into it, each round you have to try and box as clever as you can, and the key is to take as many points away, because if you mess up on one round, that's pretty much the championship gone. And at Alton, we had a bit of a scrappy weekend, and we knew we didn't maximise our points, so we came here with a bit between our teeth to try and do a lot better. And as a team, we had a debrief, and we said we mustn't let that happen again. And Seb is really focused. He's been fantastic all this weekend. We weren't the quickest car in practice. We knew we weren't ultimately the quickest car, but we knew we had a good race car, and that's showing now.
All right, hang on, hold your hand up. Let's do that. Okay, fingers crossed. I'll be back.
Fingers crossed.
In 40.17 seconds. Okay.
Okay. Now
bye.
Let's look at the screens, because while that was happening, we had the 21 Ferrari getting closer and closer. It's closed right onto Tez. Got a 5-second penalty, so he's got to get past to get into second place on the circuit, but he's really closed it down. And 2 laps before, we had Seb Morris going around the back of 2 GT4 runners and nearly clipping the wall at turn 1 in his chase of Jack Mitchell. The gap between first and second, 1.5 seconds. You can see how close second and third are, but don't forget the Ferrari, Matt Griffin, has a 5-second time penalty as well, so they have just gone past the GT4 leaders. Looking for those, we'll be having their battle too. Leading the way in GT4 at the moment is another Mitchell, and that is in car number 100. That is Sandy Mitchell, while Jack Mitchell is leading the race overall. But what a battle for these two, right?
Yeah, I mean,
over second place, John.
We've seen Matt Griffin has really run down Seb Morris. Morris had a great charge in the early part of the stint. You can see the Aston Martin still leading. It's only 1.5 seconds, but it is right now the third of these three lead cars. Matt Griffin in the Ferrari number 21. These are the GT4 battles going on. And what's changed?
The drivers have changed, and that is it.
But the more important thing is
they got the race, first, second, and third.
They got the top three in the race now, coming up to lap the top two in GT4. And they're not going to want to concede track position, but they're being well, you can see the lights in the Bentley. The Bentley's lights have been off and on all day, as the GT4 is slightly more nimble actually through these last sequence of corners. Of course, the GT3 cars, and watch Matt Griffin getting close to the tail of the Bentley, trying to use the slipstream, trying to use track position. Bentley's got good initial acceleration though onto the straight.
Wow, threading the eye of a needle, they went through the GT4 leaders. And in the GT4 battle, don't forget that the number 55, still behind 100. The McLaren still in front, but they did their pit stops on different laps. But for Stuart Middleton, who's taken over the 55, he's got exactly the same problem that Will Tregurtha has. But Sandy Mitchell leading the GT4 class in the number 100 McLaren, but looking on board through Matt Griffin's windscreen. It says 5.249 seconds. That's because there's 5 seconds added as a time penalty. It's just a quarter of a second. As you can see, that is precisely what it is out on the circuit. But they are now starting to get ever closer to our race leader, number 24, Aston Martin, who again kicks up the dirt on the exit of Piff Paff.
The Ferrari looking extremely racy coming up to the Tarzan. Looks to go down the inside. Can he outbrake the Bentley? No, he can't. Seth Morris good in the brakes on the outside line, couldn't break that fraction later, so he denies again Matt Griffin the opportunity to try and sneak through on the infield. He knows that the straight line performance between the Bentley and the Ferrari, not much to pick and choose, but now the lead cars with one of the GT4 cars between them, Matt Griffin can't get any closer to the back of the Bentley, has to use all the benefits he's got, but again the initial acceleration from the final turn onto the straight to the bend advantage. Seth Morris gap opens up now. You've got 4 car lengths.
Gosh, could he cut any lower under the line through turn 1? And that was George Gamble. Welcome to the British GT Championship.
1, 2, 3.
As they get the McLaren out of the way in the GT4 battle. This is the GT3 battle for overall honours. A twitch there from Seb Morris on the exit of Dean. Such a difficult double apex corner. Aston Martin, Bentley, Ferrari. What a heady mix in the British GT Championship. Just over half an hour to go in round 3, this 2-hour race. We had 2 1-hour races on Easter Monday at Alton Park. A wet one, very wet one, then a dry one. Now fantastic conditions, perfect racing conditions. But as all the drivers who have been spoken to by Gary Champion down in the pits, they all found it very hot work. It might be mid-spring here, but so the weather is very kind indeed for those of us with a nice, gently air-conditioned commentary box, John.
Yes, it is going to be physically tiring, a lot of concentration as well. So this is where the driver fitness, the training programs that these drivers engage in, they're not just sitting back on their Game Boy panels, whatever they do. They work very hard to keep their physical condition, and this is where it pays dividends. So 1, 2, 3 now covered by basically a second and a bit. And the Bentley trying to pick up the slipstream from the Aston, the Ferrari trying to pick up the slipstream from the Bentley. The Aston and the Bentley look fairly evenly matched. The Ferrari slightly further behind, but again it will be who's going to be brave. Is anybody going to be brave? Morris to dive down the outside. Defence from Mitchell going into turn 2. Bentley gets up almost alongside, but they're going to go up. And the Bentley loses traction. That gives Matt Griffin an opportunity to slug up the inside. He's gone alongside. Can he make it stick? No, he didn't, but he looked at it. The opportunity arose, but not quite enough track position to make it work.
It certainly did. We've seen a bit of understeer from the Bentley before down into Dean, and he's really on the exit getting very twitchy, and certainly Matt Griffin looks a little more nailed to the circuit in that Spirit of the Race Ferrari. So Jack Mitchell leading the way, but what does he have to do? He's got Seb Morris trying to go one side and Matt Griffin quite the other in the Ferrari. Well, what's he doing in the race lead?
Well, he's got to just keep focused on what he's doing, use the strengths that he has. Every car driver package will have individual strengths either at every point in the circuit or certain points. But look at Matt Griffin, frustrated, finding it hard to get away past the Bentley and through these sequence of corners at Brook. Just all you can think about is here, how can I get on my throttle earlier? With the Bentley, all I can try to do is pick up the slipstream. The Bentley's fallen back on the start of the 60th lap. So Matt Griffin will be thinking, maybe. But again, you can just see how the lead between these second and third place cars has opened up. But going back to Jack Mitchell, he knows I've got a car that's quick in a lap. My biggest concern will be always coming up to the lap traffic. And that's where you can get caught out, and that's really what I would be worried about. You can control it to some degree, because you don't have to dive down the inside of somebody. You can roll out of the throttle and just back off momentarily to ensure that when you come off the corner, that's when you make your pass. Don't take a risk going into a corner.
Yes, it was almost as though in the final few corners of the previous lap that suddenly Seb Morris started looking in his mirror to see, after that earlier attack from Matt Griffin, what he could do. There's a pink time on the screen. That means someone set the fastest lap last time around. It was Phil Keane. He set the fastest lap of the race. He's chipping away. Just over 1 minute 19 now, going faster and faster, but still in 6th place overall. Those extra 20 seconds in the pits have hurt.
But he's actually just under 15 seconds behind this group of 3 cars battling for the lead, and we've got 33 minutes of the race remaining. So while one would say at face value we don't think it's going to happen, but all you need is a safety car to come out, and that will all of a sudden just, the whole thing will close back up again, and then the people like Phil Keane and Johnny Adam, who's running in 6th place, they'll be back at the races.
Now, if you just happen to walk in, you've missed the first hour and a half or so of this 2-hour race, round 3 of the British GT Championship. Here are the first 3, nose to tail, but the Ferrari in 3rd place, Matt Griffin, don't forget, he has 5-second time penalty added to his running order. But let's just enjoy the order as it is. Jack Mitchell leading for Macmillan AMR. 2nd place, Seb Morris for Team Parker Racing in his Bentley and showing the great variety. 3rd place, Matt Griffin in the Spirit of Race Ferrari, but he has 5 seconds to add. But after nigh on 90 minutes of racing, top 3 covered by 1.5 seconds. Out on the circuit, the Bentley looks a little bit closer to the Aston Martin now, John. It went away a lap or so ago, and now Seb Morris is coming right back at him. Maybe because he hasn't had Matt Griffin chewing his tail every second of the lap.
Absolutely, it goes the long way around. He needs to be careful. He's going to try and go all the way around the outside of Tarzan, but he's going to get run out. It's going to be Matt Griffin who's going to try and slip up alongside, take again track position, but again that initial acceleration. Oh, runs wide. The Aston gets into trouble. The Bentley's going to go the wrong way. Can he make it stick? Yes. And Matt Griffin is also going to slip through. So Aston Martin have lost the lead. They may have lost 2nd place.
Well, we saw that early in the race with Derek Johnson, made a mistake at the very same point. In the number 1, Aston Martin went from 1st down to 3rd, and I'm afraid for Jack Mitchell, don't forget though, he's actually 2nd overall, because the Ferrari now in 2nd place on the track has a 5-second time penalty to add. But leading the race outright at the moment, Seb Morris took over from Rick Parfitt Jr. Maybe with just over half an hour of this race remaining, Rick Parfitt can crack a little smile in the pit lane. He feels Rockingham's a circuit that's never favoured him, but never come away with the results he wanted. But it's very close at the front, but it's the Bentley in the lead from Team Parker Racing, number 31, leading the way.
Yes, so, but it is still that Aston Martin, although it's 3rd as we look at it here, but because of the penalty, is actually in 2nd place. As we go back to the battle, and there the Ginetta has slipped through at the right part of the racetrack with the McLaren. He's tried really since this race got underway an hour and a half ago to manage to pass coming into turn 2. He's done that. Now he's got to use everything he's got. The handling of the Ginetta, that nimble, light, very clever tubular chassis. And look at the difference. The McLaren slides through, whereas the Ginetta's got a little bit more grip and just tracks all the way through those infield corners.
So what can Sandy Mitchell do? The 55 car started by Will Tregurtha. Stuart Middleton, we heard from him before the start of the race. He's taken over, and like his teammate, he's put his nose ahead of the 100 McLaren, but the 100 almost immediately went back past, but it looks so there's enough of an advantage for Middleton to maybe hold it down the start-finish straight, and Sandy Mitchell will have to try and find another moment to attack. Yes, there's more of an advantage than his teammate enjoyed so briefly.
But watch what happens when they get back onto the straight. How far behind will the McLaren be? It's probably, I don't think McLaren are going to be able to do anything. Mitchell will not have a chance to get past the 55, the lead GT4 car. He's too far behind. But look at the Matt Griffin tries to go the long way around pit path. Seb Morris is going to give him working room. He must do. And look, Griffin's got more outside speed on the outs. The Bentley all over the place. So the Ferrari has taken the lead. But in effect, he's still going to be in 3rd place because of the 5-second penalty. A lead on the picture, but 5 seconds still He's still in third place.
We don't care, John. It's enthralling racing, and Seb Morris clouted the inside curb at one of the piff-paffs. That's why we saw him coming back down to land, the car bouncing all over the place, giving Jack Mitchell in the 24 Aston Martin a chance to close in and maybe try and make a move. But it's down on terra firma one more time. Seb Morris will be calming down. Matt Griffin in the lead of the race. He's got 5 seconds to pull clear just to stay in the lead of the race. He's about 5 seconds.
He's doing it already, because you can see now that he's clear of the Bentley. He's clear of the Aston Martin. He's able to run at the natural speed of the Ferrari, and already he's pulled out the best part of a second plus a second and a half on what is the lead Bentley. So with 28 minutes remaining, and there is the McLaren that was actually leading, is now in second place. We think, we can't see where the 55 Ginetta is. Is it so far down the road or not, or is it something happened to it? So there's the Ginetta now. So
pulling clear, though.
55 Ginetta leading GT4.
Well, busy times out on the track. We're looking at Sandy Mitchell, who was leading in the number 100. Sandy Mitchell, second in class. Kieran Haggerty led the class when they came in, and he's down in the pit lane with Gary Champion.
Well, it was all looking good when you came in.
It was, yeah. It was definitely a tough stint. Having a Ginetta behind me the whole way made it very difficult, but I just tried to hold them off and do the best job I could, and brought it in the lead. We had a good pit stop, and we're currently second, so yeah, it's going well so far.
You happy with second? I mean, you were delighted with first 2 minutes ago, so...
Yeah, obviously coming in from the lead, you want to maintain the lead, but some of the other cars are very, very fast, so it was always going to be tough to hold them back. So we're hoping to still be on the podium at the end of the race.
What's the advantage your car's got over, say, the Ginetta?
See, at this track particularly, we get very good straight line speed, and our car is very good on the brakes. I'd say those are our two biggest advantages over the other cars.
So the twisty bits, not so good. Get round the banking, woof, we're gone.
Absolutely. The car's it's not too bad, but it's obviously the other cars are sometimes a bit lighter, so you don't use their tyres up as much.
All right, Kieran, I'll get you back to the screen so you can watch and stay nervous. Okay, we'll go back to Bruce Jones and John Watson up at the top.
Thanks very much. Down in the pit lane, Gary Champion, and just while that interview was going on, 2 cars have been pinged for not spending enough time in their mandatory timed pit stop. 36 has got a time penalty, but 69, they've got the biggest one of all, an extra 30 seconds added to the time, and that's Harry Gottsacker and Nathan Freak in their Century Motorsport car, Ginetta in the GT3 class. So that will really tip them down the order. These things have to be marshalled, and they didn't quite marshal it right.
No, that's a win and lose in the pit lane. What's been going on the racetrack, I've been keeping an eye on timing and scoring, and 2 drivers who are making progress. And we've still got 26 minutes of this race remaining as we watch the second place McLaren, and that is Sam Tordorf and Phil Keane have been bit by bit working their way up and into the gravel, and that's going to be, is that going to be the safety car or not? Well, can they remove it without having to bring out the safety car? I think that's coming out of Yentwood, I'm not sure, I think it is.
Well, this car, we'd seen Sam Webster have a really strong run for Autorade RCIB Insurance cars. The Ginetta's run by Hard Racing, Team Hard, but I'm afraid he's handed it to Matt Chapman, and Matt's had a bit of a glitch. He was running 5th. In fact, I think we even saw it fleetingly get to 3rd or 4th position in class. Because don't forget, John, we had them so close before the pit stops. That's 36, 6-second stop go. I think we've already been in the pits. That was with George Gamble, who came on board. No, sorry, he's in 111. 36 has got. That was the other change. It was Simon Rudd and Jordan Stilp who brought in at the last minute to take over from Mike Newbold and Michael Caine in the 36.
So this car in a position that I suspect they're going to have to get a snatch vehicle. Well, they are going to have to get a snatch vehicle to retrieve it. But what I wanted to talk about was the performance of Sam Tordorf and Phil Keane. There's the safety car ready to be deployed. They have been bit by bit working their way forward, so 4th and 5th. So let's see what's going to happen. This is going to play to the advantage of those 4th and 5th place runners and work against Matt Griffin to some degree, although he will be Well, when the safety car picks up the leader, will they pick up the leader on the racetrack or the leader in effect? Or,
That is a very interesting point,
because
John.
if they pick up the leader on the racetrack, which is Matt Griffin, but he is 5 seconds penalty, so technically he's not the leader, but he's ahead. So if Matt Griffin has to do another lap to go round to the tail of the field, it's all over for him.
No, because I think effectively his 5-second penalty only keeps him back in. Well, he's listed as second place overall with that time penalty included. I don't think you can work it otherwise, but it does give him less.
The leader is Seb Morris, not this car.
Yes, well,
See,
well, let's, yeah, no,
So would this race safety car pick up Matt Griffin or Seb Morris?
well, let's find out. That's for the race officials,
Because
but it gives him
the
less time.
The race is being led by Seb Morris.
Okay, well, let's. No, I get what you're saying. We get what you're saying, John. Now let's just see where it goes. SC at the top of the timing screens, and if it stays as it is, and they come out ahead of the driver who's leading on the track, which is Matt Griffin, that reduces the amount of time he's got to claw back the 5-second penalty he's got.
What?
But our timing screens show Seb Morris. There's the SC on the start gantry safety car. The drivers know that. It's been like that for a while. The yellow flag being waved at the marshal posts around the circuit. There is the driver behind the safety car. That is Matt Griffin we've been talking about. That 5-second penalty actually puts him third at the moment. This is confusing. Leading on the track is Matt Griffin, the 21 Ferrari. He's got a 5-second penalty, which drops him down to third place behind Seb Morris in the Bentley and Jack Mitchell in the 24 Aston Martin. Tricky one for the race officials.
Yes, it's an interesting one. I'm sure they've had to deal with these situations before. But interestingly, I keep going back to Tordorf in number 6 and Keane in the 33. They have been brought right up to effectively, other than there are some of the GT4 cars between those. There's the 4th and 5th place cars running behind the Bentley, so they're actually in good shape.
Yeah.
This is an interesting finale with just about 22 minutes remaining, because it may not be what we see as the lead car, or we know the lead car is the number 31 Bentley of Seb Morris, but on the road by Matt Griffin in the 21 Ferrari.
Well, John, you mentioned the fact that there were maybe some GT4 cars between them. In fact, I think we've only got one car with a black windows strip in that grouping. No, two. We've got first and second and fifth in that line. The rest are all the GT3 front runners. But it's a big case. The second car in that line is between Matt Griffin, who's leading with still that 5-second time penalty to be added. On the track, he's leading, but that Lannon Racing GT4 runner has been going very well, but it's between there and the Bentley,
Yes,
so
but
difficult.
The benefit that Matt Griffin has got is that he is directly behind the safety car. So when the safety car turns to the pit lane, there's one car that can get on it and drive clear, who doesn't have to worry about lapped traffic. And in fact, looking around the racetrack, there is nobody within half a lap of where the Ferrari will be when this race is re-released, and therefore Matt Griffin can just head down and charge, while all behind are going to be struggling, trying to get through the GT4s, wherever they may be, or those cars that particularly of Sam Tordorf and Phil Keane, who have now joined into this battle, which is still a battle for first through fifth. But anyway.
So on the one hand, John, the sooner the safety car comes in, gives the greatest amount of time to Matt Griffin to try and claw back the 5 seconds.
Correct.
But the longer it takes to come in, it means the rest of the field will get onto the tail, so he'll have clear track ahead of him for the longest period. But I don't think that's a factor that he really cares about right now.
No, he's got to focus on just trying to extend his advantage, which currently is, in terms of time, it's maybe a second or so between himself. There is the green and white Ferrari. The car between is one of the GT4 Ginettas. Maybe that's one of the GT3 Ginettas. And then you've got the Seb Morris. I'm just looking at timing and scoring. Seb Morris in the Bentley. So Matt Griffin, he needs for the safety car to return to the pit lane as soon as possible. There is the Ginetta being picked up by the snatch vehicle, and it will be then put safely behind the barriers on the outside of the circuit. Looks like they're going to try and remove the car, because the driver, of course, exited the car some time ago. He's now, I wonder if he's going to try and get back into it again.
So just as we saw one of the two RCIB Insurance Racing entries taken away. That's Matt Chapman. It was his car. Looking down in the pit lane, the sister car of Jordan Stilp and Simon Rudd has been wheeled away from the pit lane, so dreadful for them, and Matt Chapman being spoken to.
I wonder if they're going to let him get into the car and drive it back, because once it's been removed from the gravel and has been set down, or will their car just simply craned away altogether?
So, still behind the safety car into the final 20 minutes, this 2-hour race, round 3 of the British GT Championship. We have Matt Griffin leading the way behind the safety car. He has a 5-second penalty to serve. Let's go to commercial break. Waiting to see when the safety car will withdraw. As you can see, 18 and a half minutes remaining in this race. Matt Griffin will be willing the safety car to put in. He's got a 5-second time penalty he has got to manage to dispose of. He's got one GT4 runner behind him, and then third car in that train is Seb Morris in the Bentley, who effectively is leading the race with that 5-second penalty for Matt Griffin. He'll be taking a look at the tail of it. He's got Sam Tordoff now and Phil Keane. You said the Lamborghinis would come forward, John, and so they have. They're in the back of that grouping. And
he's trying to get the GT4 car to go through, but he's reluctant because he knows if he overtakes the safety car. So, I mean, it's unfortunate that the communication. Safety car now is out of position because
it's ahead of the race leader.
It's picked up now the race leader, which is the Bentley of Seb Morris. So we've now got what was leading on the road, but 5 seconds behind because of him. So where?
Well, Matt Griffin has taken off.
Has he got to take? He's going to have to join the rear of the field. It would appear to me, or.
Well, John, I think you call that absolutely spot on. How harsh that is for Matt Griffin, if indeed that is the case. Down into Dean he goes. How hard can he push? He's only going through turn 1 now is the safety car, and Matt Griffin. Oh my God, we know he's a driver who can. Achieve enormous things, but this has to be surely too enormous. 3/4 of a lap it could be, maybe half by the time he presses on and gets around. He's got clear track ahead of him. The field as he goes through Chapman Curve, riding on board with him in the 21 Spirit of Race Ferrari. Field only halfway between the exit of Dean and the turn in.
So is he going to have to do a
full lap
to catch up to the tail, or to catch up to where his position? I mean, he is being indicated still on timing and scoring as leading the race. But he's not. It's being led by Seb Morris in the Bentley, the first car behind the safety car.
The timing screen will flip round again. We often see that. Griffin crosses the start-finish line first, and then they readjust when the time penalty is readjusted. But what we can see is Matt Griffin is herring into Brook, the penultimate corner of the circuit, while the rest of the field is only going through Graceland. So he's got half a lap clear, still trying to make it up. I think the lights might have just gone out. Yes, they have, on the roof of the safety car. So time is really counting against Matt Griffin, going over the start-finish line through turn 1 as they get down to Tarzan. So in effectively 4 corners time, we will have the safety car peeling off. We will have Seb Morris going back into the lead of the race.
He's about to get back underway here at Rockingham with Seb Morris as the race leader.
Safety car withdrawn. Seb Morris goes into the lead of the race. Look for Phil Keane diving up the inside of his teammate Sam Tordoff in that battle for position. The Bentley streaming clear. Jack Mitchell giving chase in the Aston Martin, but perhaps the biggest chase of all as they turn into Dean, going down the back straight towards Tarzan, having lost effectively a lap, is Matt Griffin. He is out of it. Oh, how unkind that was, because the time penalty. That'll be a lot of conversation after the race. What we can tell you, it's super, super close. There's the driver that started the car that started from pole position, the number 1 Aston Martin. Derek Johnson had a stumble. That's dropped it down the order, but Johnny Adam, he can work magic in that. Let's see what he can do. He's right behind Ryan Ratcliffe in the Mercedes. A lot of talk down in the Spirit of Race garage. Some gesticulation, as you'd imagine.
It seems a very harsh penalty on the 21 Ferrari Matt Griffin because of the circumstances of that 5-second penalty. So he was made do a lap to catch up to the tail of the field, and I think that there will be discussions regarding that judgment.
Well, Duncan Cameron, who started the Spirit of Race Ferrari, standing looking relatively calm in the pits. He's not throwing his toys out of the pram at all, but look, nose to tail, the GT3 runners and the Lamborghinis working their way toward the front. We had 2 Aston Martins on the front row, 2 Lamborghinis on the second. The number 6 Lamborghini lost ground. The number 33 one had a 20-second extra time in the pit stop. There's Duncan Cameron looking, he wants explanations right now, but we can tell you the 21 Ferrari, his Ferrari, is way back down the order. Seb Morris is leading the race. There he is, the Bentley, head of the Aston Martin. Jack Mitchell in there, then another Bentley, that's a lap down, ignore that. Third place is that first of the 2 Lamborghinis, which is Phil Keane. Fourth place is Sam Tordoff, tucked in behind. They seemed out of the running, but they've come in good. And we said before, John, they look very well balanced on their tyres here at Rockingham.
Well, I mean, absolute upside down, turn around position. The battle now is very clearly between the lead Bentley, the Aston Martin, and then the 2 Lamborghinis. And don't discount the number 1 Aston Martin of Johnny Adam, which is currently down in 8th position. Well, in reality, it's 7th position. So it's not a done and dusted deal, but with only 13 and a half minutes to go, all Seb Morris has to do is just hang on, resist any pressure, and it's going to be his victory.
Yeah, and poor Matt Griffin going through Dean. Griffin still on the timing screens, shown as the leader of the race, but we can tell you he was flagged by. He's had to go right down to the end. Maybe he shouldn't have been waved through when the GT4 runner, they were trying to get out of the way, was waved through. But what we can tell you, he may only just catch the tail of the GT4 class. So, which of these Lamborghini crews is going to finish on the podium? Will it be the 33 crew to let us, which finished first at Alton Park in the first 2 rounds, a wet one and then a dry one, but he's got Sam Tordoff tucked in behind in the second of the Barwell. Lamborghinis leading the race.
Johnny Adam coming through as well.
In the background, John pointing at the screen. I was looking to work it out. The cars so close together. Johnny Adam not in the number 30 Mercedes. That is Ryan Ratcliffe. He's in the number 1 Aston Martin right behind, and he's got the sister car with John Barnes tucked in behind. So one of the TF Sport Aston Martin's really in the thick of the grouping there, but it's the Lamborghinis on the move. But really the driver who's got the biggest smile on his face has to be Seb Morris, rivalled only by his teammate Rick Parfitt back in the pits. The clock suddenly has got down to just a dozen minutes to go till the checkered flag will be unfurled.
Where's it all gone? I mean, there's been so much action on track. Those 3 safety car interventions have, particularly this last one, have had a dramatic outcome on the outcome of this 2 hours British GT round.
Quite so, and it looks like it's 5 cars almost nose to tail. Slightly ignore the second of the Bentleys. That's number 7, Callum McLeod, because he's a lap down. So there it is, the bright green flashes on its wings. So you go, the lead Bentley, the Aston Martin, lap down is Callum McLeod, but then come the Barwell Lamborghinis. We've got Phil Keane being pushed very hard indeed by Sam Tordoff, and they have showed great pace. Phil Keane has set the fastest lap of the race so far. The tyres are feeling a little tired, and as we saw earlier, a lot of rubber debris out on the circuit. So it won't be conducive for really quick lap times, and Seb Morris sitting pretty in the lead of the race, clear on the track at least from Jack Mitchell by almost 2 seconds now. So Jack Mitchell starting to come under pressure, not from that car, that's the one not in the hunt, the 7 Bentley, but not in the way particularly, unless your name is Phil Keane and you really would wish that he'd step aside being a lap down, but Callum McLeod not interested.
No, but Callum McLeod is, in effect, he's out of position, but he's running at the pace, and he's saying, well, you know, if you're quick enough past me, I would like to think that he might realise that he's involved in a battle which he's not really a part of, and it doesn't cost him anything to let these 4th and 5th pace cars go through.
No, entirely so, but there he is, because in fact number 7 is Callum McLeod, listed in 9th place overall, but importantly a lap down. Phil Keane's trying to find a place to go past, but turning into Brook, not enough space for him to do so. You can see him going through those tight twisters and then accelerating through the likely bank bend onto the bank part of the circuit here at Rockingham. The Aston Martin is not being able to escape with Jack Mitchell on board, but Seb Morris has escaped his advantage precisely 2 seconds over Mitchell, so just eking ever further clear. Look to the very back of all the action and you'll see the silver bonnet on the green flanks of Matt Griffin's Ferrari, turning down now into Tarzan as the race leaders go down almost half a lap clear, as fast as Matt Griffin can lap. There's nothing he can do about those ahead, and right now there's nothing the 2 Lamborghinis from Barwell can do to get past that other Bentley which is running a lap down.
Yes, Callum McLeod is running at the pace of the cars that are around him as you go back into the Ferrari pits, and they're looking at the timing and scoring and trying to understand how their car, which was leading on the road, but was in reality overall, I think, in third or fourth position when the safety car was deployed, how they ended up in the confusion of the GT4 car being waved through. Somehow or other, Matt Griffin seems to have believed, I don't know, I'm second guessing, but certainly it is a confusion as to who was meant to stay position and who was meant to not.
Rick Parfitt Jr., his car, we think, is effectively leading the race, but you can tell the tension's mounting. He's starting to shout at the timing monitor. And now Sam Tordoff really fancies a bit of the action. They're both desperate, these Lamborghinis, to get past that number 7 Bentley, and just can't do so. Callum McLeod's got the pace, good punch onto the start-finish straight. He isn't in the overall mix. Shrug of shoulders from Duncan Cameron. Nothing he thinks his teammate can do. Did Matt Griffin make a mistake? Was he waved past? We can't tell you from our commentary position, but it has changed the outcome of the race.
I mean, Duncan Cameron's body language told me a lot. I'd like to hear what actually he was saying, because that'd probably be more interesting.
Wouldn't it just? Anyhow, a great battle between the Barwell Lamborghinis. But they're fighting over third and fourth. So plenty for the journos chased at the end of this race. I think they'll be heading straight down. And we're going to throw as much light as we can on the incident when Matt Griffin was way past. Right, here's the safety car. Looking through the windscreen at number 21, that's Matt Griffin. We've just been thinking they're going to wave the GT4 cars past. Matt Griffin isn't sure what to do.
Well, absolutely.
The waving is still being shown to him, and he's going, but
why were they waving Matt Griffin through?
Because the car behind him was a GT4 class car, which was the one we thought they were waving past. Matt Griffin had a 5-second time penalty, but was leading on the road. With the 5-second added, it put him back in third place. Anyhow, he went and then had to hare over the next lap and a half to try and catch the tail of the field, and he's only just doing that now, but that's taken them from certainly a podium to nowhere, to oblivion. Still listed, however, at the top of our timing screen.
The irony is he's still being listed as being the lead car, and the gap between the lead car and the second place car is 28.4 seconds. Now work that one up, because I can't.
John, I don't want you to take your shoes and socks off to do some counting and work out the timing. What we can tell you, second, third and fourth on the track have now, the Parker Racing Bentley's got out of their way. Number 7's dropped back behind them. Now Jack Mitchell in the Aston Martin is having to hang on for dear life. Phil Keane and Sam Tordoff, who looks the quicker of the two Lamborghini drivers right now in this traffic, really fancy getting up onto the podium. Seb Morris is clear by a couple of seconds, about 3.5 seconds now in the lead of the race in the Team Barker Racing. Number 31 Bentley, there he is. Then there's the gap. Then the Aston Martin, number 24, then the 33 Lamborghini, then number 6, and then having let them through, Callum McLeod now out of the way in the other Bentley. He's a lap down, and then the rest of the chasers trying to see what they can do, with Ryan Ratcliffe leading their group in that red Mercedes. But who's going to make the move, John?
Well, let's wait and see, because it looks to me, and you're right, that Sam Tordoff looks to be the quicker of the two Barwell Lamborghini drivers right now. Certainly he's able to make a lot of moves that look threatening to Phil Keane. Phil Keane's focus is on this car, the Aston Martin. On the straight, the Bentley could pull initially away from the Lamborghinis. Can the Aston do the same thing? Or is this going to give Keane and Tordoff nothing much between those lead second, third, fourth place cars? Look at Tordoff, he's trying to make something happen. Looking to make this very deep.
Well, this one is going to run and run. We're still getting lots of messages from race control about who and why Matt Griffin was waved through, when we think it was just a GT4 car that had to come through. There were a handful of them dotted in that GT3 runners, because the GT4 car, if it was kept there, that's why they wanted it out of the way, would, once the lights went out, Matt Griffin could have gone and no one else could have overtaken the GT4 class car. So John, you were right, that's why they wanted the GT4 car to go past, but Matt Griffin went as well.
Yes. So there's battle again. Tordoff looking to go whichever way he can find to get up alongside the sister car, with one of the GT4 Janettas staying well and truly out of the way. The Bentley just in the last.
John, actually, that was the car they wanted to wave past, I think.
Yeah, but it's on this battle looking now for second place. The Aston Martin, Phil Keane in the green Lamborghini, Sam Tordoff in the blue Lamborghini. Tordoff again hunting every which way to try and get some advantage of last turn onto the. I think Sam Tordoff is the man that's going to make the move, because Phil Keane is losing initially coming onto the straight, where Tordoff seems to be able to keep a little bit more contact, and he's closing a little bit as they come down into Dean corner. Phil Keane as opposed to the Dean corner, covers the corner, runs close to the rear of the Aston. Again, it's Tordoff who's got the better options as to whether he exits one way or the other.
I think Tordoff really needs Keane to make a dive, get it maybe slightly wrong, compromise both he and Jack Mitchell, and maybe he can then benefit and make a move in the blue flank Lamborghini. So this is really the battle. Is it the battle for first? Well, it's not the battle for first because Seb Morris is way clear, but it's a battle for third. So round we go. We're not complaining. It's fantastic racing, but the clock is ticking down. If Tordoff's going to make a move, it's got to come very soon, Don. 4 minutes remain till the checkered flag will be unfurled. Boards up on, just looking at the starting gantry, someone's got another 5-second penalty being added to their time. 56, 43 and 66. So 53 is one of the RJN Motorsport Ultratech Nissans. That's the Tafinder Plowman car. 43 Century Motorsport Fresel Mathiasson, but look how close it's getting for Phil Keane. Is this the move coming? Almost alongside the Aston Martin out of the final corner.
This is the first time he's had a really good run out of that final corner to try and get into the slipstream of the Aston Martin through the flat out banking. The Aston is pulling again. You can see 3-4 car lengths. Now Tordoff comes back. Again, he takes the slightly wider entrance to make the undercut coming off. But again, it's status quo. Sorry, that was Rick Parford, I beg your pardon, who is trying to keep position, and I've lost the thread there.
No, but entirely so. But here's Matt Griffin. Haven't seen him for quite some while. Of course, he was way through. There we are. More cars with time penalties, 43 and 66. These are for track limits. Now we're riding with Matt Griffin, twitching as he comes onto the start-finish straight. Well, the drivers were hot when they came out after the first stint. You feel the heat coming out of his cockpit is going to be twice as much. Duncan Cameron can do nothing. He drove a very good opening stint.
This is the leader of the race.
Absolutely, it's the leader of the race.
I mean, it's been slightly confusion, but Matt Griffin, who was instructed, maybe he wasn't instructed, it was the Ginetta they wanted to, but as it happened...
Looking through his windscreen, as we saw from the onboard camera, and you can see Matt not sure, him throwing up one of his hands, going, what? Extra pressure you do not need. So we feel this is the battle for third place. Jack Mitchell ahead of Phil Keane. Jack Tordoff right in behind. Then the Team Parker Bentley, number 7, that's not... Oh, he's now dropped behind Ryan Ratcliffe and Johnny Adam. And a lot of these cars would have been frustrated by the safety car period because they wanted to be attacking flat out, and it's interrupted their driver stint. But it's the same for all of them. There you can see Ryan Ratcliffe in the red-nosed Mercedes, trying to get up with the Lamborghinis, and pushing him hard indeed is Johnny Adam in the Aston Martin that started in the hands of Derek Johnson on pole position, fell down the order a little bit. We sort of had that Rodeo ride through the gravel, John, didn't we, down at Brook, covering the track. Is this going to change? Can Jack Mitchell hang on? He came out in the lead of the race after the pit stops, got past relatively easily by Seb Morris, who was very feisty after his pit stop, and now he's that 24 Aston Martin hogs the camera again, as right behind is the racing action. The 2 Lamborghinis of Keane, then Tordoff, then Ryan Ratcliffe really starting to get in the mix, and Johnny Adam in the background.
What Jack Mitchell has done is defended his position, and he's done it cleanly and fairly. He's just had the pace where it counts, and that's on the quick bits, the high-speed parts of this Rockingham circuit. And the Lamborghinis, which are all over the back of the Aston, as Johnny Adam tries a bit of a move down the outside, coming into the final Brook sequence of corners. Again, the Mercedes probably slightly quicker, but Adam on the exit makes a quicker exit than the Mercedes of Barnes. And well, here we go again. This is going to be Phil Keane's last chance, because effectively this is the last lap at Minshaw. Now about Tordoff, I'm getting confused with the first and second. Sam Tordoff tried again, looked like he was going to make a move down the inside, could do nothing, but Adams trying to make it up into the top, will be finishing 7th place.
Yeah, well, he certainly had a look at Ryan Ratcliffe, and here it's been confusing, it's been fast, it's been furious. This should be the last lap because it's 10 seconds on the clock. I'm looking down at the start gantry. Oh, I can see a man with a checkered flag, I think, to twitch, but let's not jump the gun. Round the final corner, should do it almost to perfection. Has he got the flag ready? Yes, he has. Out it comes for... Well, there's Duncan Cameron suddenly came good at the end, but he had 20 minutes of uncomfortableness down in the pits, and Rick Parfitt Jr., he's come away with 2nd place with Seb Morris. It's been confusing, and he's not entirely sure he's happy with the way it happened. I think there's going to be a lot of conversation, but the battle for 3rd place, Jack Mitchell leading the way. right behind Phil Keane, tucked in behind his tail in the second of the Lamborghinis is Sam Tordoff, but they're running out of time, almost touching Keane under the tail of Jack Mitchell as they come out of Brook into the final corner. It's a case of hard acceleration, but has Phil Keane managed to do it? Oh, I think Aston Martin is just, what's that going to be in terms of seconds? Well, they listed it as a tenth of a second between them, but I think it was almost less than that. So a charge for the line. So the crew that finished first at Alton Park will have to make do with fourth place here. What a race of incidents. 2 hours that's gone by in a flash. We've had safety car periods. There'll be plenty of conversation in the pits afterwards. Some fantastic racing at the front, not just in GT3 for overall honours, but in the GT4 class. And at the end in GT4, it was victory to the 55 crew, and there they are. Stuart Middleton took over from Will Tregurtha. Such a strong battle with the number 100 McLaren, but at the end, the number 100 had to make do with second place in class. So extraordinary racing here at Rockingham. Weather was supposed to be not very good. It turned out to be absolutely fine. Great weather. Certainly drivers could have had no excuses. In fact, some complained it was almost a bit too hot for them. Certainly the AM drivers who did the opening stint of the race. But for John Watson and I, that's been an enthralling race to call. And I feel there are going to be various investigations. Contact between 21 and 31 will be investigated after the race. 21? Hold on. That was our race winner. That was Duncan Cameron, Matt Griffin. 31, Parfitt Jr. and Morris. I'm trying to think of any contact between them during the course of the race.
Don't recall seeing anything that would warrant a notice being up on timing and scoring. So Matt Griffin drives the 21 Ferrari back into the pit lane, and the issue of that final safety car and the intention to wave through the GT4 car, and unfortunately there was confusion because Matt Griffin went as well, because he saw clearly an instruction from the passenger side window of the McLaren safety car.
Well, it is. There we have the 21 Ferrari. It's been put next to the first position board. I can't wait to see Matt Griffin's face. Can't see it now through his helmet. He's looking pretty happy.
Look on his overalls. Look at his overalls. What's the badge say? Irish Racing Drivers Club.
Thanks, John. I'm just waiting to see his expression. He's really happy, but I'd love to watch the slow-mo of his face as he was trying to work out in the cockpit what was going on. But he's come through, and he and Duncan Cameron, victory for Ferrari at Rockingham. He's by the number 1 first place finishers board. And for a lot of the crews, we saw their faces going through 1,000 expressions. Gary Champion's homing in to try and get an interview down there, but I'm sure there are going to be some great words from Matt Griffin when he takes his helmet off. But that was confusing, but there was some fantastic racing, John, down here at Rockingham. There,
it's
helmet off, looks good.
Very, very pleased indeed. Confused, but pleased. But it's a tough circuit, because once you get off the banking down into turn 2, not a lot of places you can make a clean overtake.
Well, let's go down. Gary Champion has got our winner, Matt Griffin.
We want to know what your face was looking like when you were told that you were leading, but that was a little bit controversial, but you're a very happy man.
Yeah, I mean, it was a strange race. I don't particularly agree with those type of penalties, because it causes a lot of confusion. I knew I needed to get past the Bentley, and I knew I needed to get 5 seconds. So I got my head down, and when that safety car came out, I was raging in the car, because at that point I had 3.5, 4 seconds, and I thought, I've got 20 minutes, we're going to win this. Then I got way past the safety car. And I wasn't sure if that had hurt us, if it had helped us. And as it turned out, it helped us. But we would have won the race anyway. We won the race on the road. I was leading. I passed. I exited the pits, I think, in 4th place. I passed the guy for 3rd. I passed the guy for 2nd, and I passed the guy for the lead. Duncan did an amazing job in his stint. I think he was the best amateur driver out there. And we had that 5-second penalty, but I think, like I said, we would have won it anyway. So it's a mega tough championship, British GT. It's definitely the toughest national championship in the world. It's my 100th race. I won my first one, and now Duncan and I, we've won my 100th. So I'm pretty happy.
That's brilliant. Okay, let's go to you, because you were confused. You were in the motorhome. There's a 5-second penalty. You come out of the motorhome. Yeah. Clearly, you need to spend more time in the motorhome.
It was like 25 seconds it took me to get from the motorhome to the pit box, and in that time, all of this had happened. So everybody was scratching their heads a little bit in the garage. I think they're probably scratching their heads a bit in the race control as well. But at the end of the day, the result was a good result.
Right. Well done. Thanks, Duncan. Let's get back to Bruce Jones and to John Watson, who's happy that there's an Irish driver that's won a race.
Hi, RDC, yeah?
Thanks very much, Gary. So, Spirit of the Race Ferrari, we know now they're the winners. It was a period where we couldn't be entirely sure, but let's take a look at the results. It certainly was quite a 2-hour race for round 3 of the British GT Championships. And here are the results. Matt Griffin brought the 21 Ferrari through to victory. Seb Morris came home in second place, the Bentley he shared with Rick Parfitt Jr. Jack Mitchell held off those 2 Lamborghinis of Phil Keane and Sam Tordoff to take the final position on the podium. Ryan Ratcliffe tucked in behind in his Mercedes. John Barnes and Johnny Adam got the fight right the way to the finish. In fact, I think they changed order in the final lap. Then Callum McLeod a lap down, and Martin Short in the silver class down in 10th place overall. 11th place overall victory in GT4. Stuart Middleton in the number 55 ahead of the McLaren of Sandy Mitchell. That was fighting right the way to the finish. And Mike Robinson will be the final podium finisher in GT4. Great battles. We had 29 cars come out to play, John Watson, at Rockingham, and I think you could say safely that they entertained us enormously. And it was a really enthralling afternoon's racing.
Well, at your first hand, you got the, you might call the amateurs or the gentleman drivers doing the first hour, and it was a full hour on a circuit that is physically demanding, and a day which was probably slightly warmer than most might have anticipated at this time of year. A lot of hard work goes into the chassis around the infield here at Rockingham. You get that momentary breathing space when you go through the banking, but an hour behind a car when you're accustomed to doing half-hour stints, stopping, and then going back out and doing a second half hour. So tough race. I mean, I think that the professional drivers, that's part of their meat and two veg of being a professional driver. But overall, I mean, very exciting at the finish, albeit with an element of confusion thrown in.
And just to reiterate, as we're sitting here, John summing up the race, is a message that flashes on our screen. Contact between cars 21 and 31 will be investigated after the race. The finishing cars in first and second places were cars 21 and 31. So you could say this race ran and ran, and it may yet run some more. We could have Jack Mitchell in the 24 Aston Martin taking the win. But it was a race that had many, many highlights. And let's take a look at the action as it unfolded. Start of the race, dry conditions, fabulous start. Derek Johnson nailed the number 1 Aston Martin to lead, and the GT4 entry from Macmillan, well, tapped the back of the Aston Martin. We had Harry Gottsacker taking to the gravel early on. SC means safety car. Phil Keane took over the 33 Lamborghini, but in the early stage of the race it was John Minshaw pitching in the number 33. A quick spin from Mark Farmer there early in the action. That took him down the order. More incidents, I'm afraid, for the Ultratech Nissan team. A little spin down there, tipped by Nick Jones in the Porsche. Oh, a bit of contact there with the back of the Aston Martin from the 21 car. Oh, that was the lap before, and then this happened next time around. That number 1 Aston Martin that had the tap the lap before into Brook, with Derek Johnson on board going for a run through the gravel. He then spat the gravel all over. I think it was Lee Mole who was giving chase in his Mercedes. But after the pit stops that came in the 1 hour mark, we had number 24 coming out to lead overall, and just squeaking out into the lead of GT4 was the 100 McLaren that had been fighting all the way. Rick Parfitt Jr. said it was one of the hottest, toughest stints he's ever done, and you could see him suffering the effects of that in the pit lane. Now here's a moment of confusion. Late in the race, the safety car flags past the first car in the line, wanted the GT4 car to go as well, but the number 21 Ferrari had a 5-second penalty, didn't know whether to go through or not. That was going to be added to his times. He went through. He then had 3/4 of a lap to make up. There was a huge amount of confusion. Then it was straightened out. There was the checkered flag being waved at the number 21 car. Duncan Cameron was happy. That was confirmation that he and Matt Griffin had won the race. Super, super close behind. Seb Morris came through in second place, and Jack Mitchell just leading the Lamborghinis. Look how close it was, with John Minshaw nearly getting it, but having to be fourth. 5th place to Sam Tordoff. Great day's racing at Rockingham. And now we're going to have the podium. The paddock is absolutely chocker down there. People looking up, but it's going to be a huge amount of confusion during the course of that race. Some brilliant side-by-side racing, but somehow at the end, the speed of spirit of race, and Matt Griffin came through at the end to take victory. So the podium ceremony beginning down there. This is the GT4 grouping. And up onto the top step go Will Tregurtha and Stuart Middleton. Second place, Sandy Mitchell and Kieran Haggerty, the McLaren racers who raced so hard. And third place, 5:01, Graham Johnson and Mike Robinson. They're no strangers to podiums. So certainly for the 55 crew on the top step and the 100 crew, Ginetta ahead of McLaren. That was a fascinating racing, John. But the McLaren's so strong down the start-finish straight, it looks as though we'd never have them past.
Yeah, so the strength of McLaren had clearly got the so the crew run, probably 8-10 car lengths. It's basically
it was the straight line performance of the McLaren that was very obvious indeed, but there was then the infield where the nimbleness of the little Ginettas was so noticeable. But there's the frustration, you cannot overtake in the infield unless you're absolutely side by side. So eventually it happened, but it was a lot of hard work.
Certainly was. Worth reiterating, the winning crew of Stuart Middleton and Will Tregurtha, both 17 years old, so huge amount of composure from them. But that's the GT4 podium just being completed. The wind's still blowing from right to left as we look at it, as we look across the pit lane. But it's been fantastic racing, both in GT4, 17 starters. I think we probably had 15 finishers in that. And then we need the GT3 runners to come to the podium. And certainly in the final few laps, John, it was almost anybody's guess who had done it. We weren't sure whether the 21 Spirit of Race Ferrari crew were able to maintain their lead position at the head of the pack. They had that 5-second time penalty. Then we weren't sure they should have been waved through. They were waved through. But the important thing is their cars were brought to the end and put in front of the 1, 2, 3 boards with the Spirit of Race Ferrari in front.
We're still waiting to see the GT3, the overall winners, make their way up to the podium, and it was an unusual situation to have the race, the car that was on the road ahead, but actually in overall positions behind. But it was the car was waved through, and it's hopefully not going to develop into anything else. Of course, the car that is the winner, we believe, is under observation for a collision or a tap to what is the second place. There we are. Happy families.
Well, they're the Bentley drivers coming out of the podium. Rick Parfitt Jr. on the left, Seb Morris. We've already seen the 24 crew of Aston Martin crew of Jack Mitchell and James Littlejohn there. Duncan Cameron with the longer hair and Matt Griffin with the larger smile up, having taken victory for Spirit of Race. Still under investigation, but they came through. Confusing ties, but some fantastic racing, John. That was the key at Rockingham.
Yeah, I mean, all the way through the last half of this race, it's just been nose to tail. And drivers using their racing brain. They weren't just being clumsy, they were using what they had got to try and gain that advantage. But good defence from the Aston, and the two Lambos couldn't do much more.
No, they chased all the way to the finish, but victory for Spirit of Race for Matt Griffin on the left with the thumbs up and the wave from Duncan Cameron. Victory today at Rockingham. That's round 3. Next stop, Snetterton at the end. There's Lee Mole cheering on the right-hand side, but I think it's podium time. Trophy we have. There's Phil Keane come out onto the podium as well, but I think any second now it's what they all work towards in a hot race. Everybody wise is leaving the podium as it's time for champagne. And it's been a great race here at Rockingham. We didn't know who was the winner literally until they came across the finish line, and cheering on the podium. Winners this afternoon, Spirit of Race Ferrari, Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin. And now a commercial break. So Spirit of Race Ferrari crew taking a victory at the end of the 2 hours here at Rockingham, and they came out ahead of one of the two Team Parker Racing Bentleys, Seb Morris and Rick Parfitt Jr. Third place on the podium, Jack Mitchell and James Littlejohn, who did such a great opening stint, John, to lead the race, work his way from 8th up to first place.
Yes, and I mean the most important thing is in the early laps is to make your progress and do it quickly, cleanly. And once you've gotten track position, then you can think about, if you're under pressure, how to defend that. But a good job by both drivers in the third place Aston.
It's interesting now just looking at Matt Griffin talking to Rick Parfitt Jr. Shoulders were shrugged from Matt. It was confusing, and I think there's going to be plenty of conversation. But from my point of view, just looking at the racing, we had cars nose to tail, side by side. It was enthralling.
I think the point that Matt Neal Matt Griffin, I beg your pardon, Matt Griffin made was that once Matt had got ahead on the racetrack, although he was 5 seconds deficit, he was going to make up those 5 seconds because he had effectively over half the racetrack clear to make up that time, and he felt no problem, I can do that. So the 5 seconds penalty would have been eliminated. I would have still won, maybe not by 7 seconds, but by 2 seconds, which would have been the official timing difference between first and second place.
So the British GT Championship adds another race to its chapter, and we expected rain. We didn't get rain. What we got was some cracking racing. 29 crews going out. As GT4 continues to become the burgeoning element of the championship, and that in itself provided some fabulous racing. Hard to draw your eyes away as Seb Morris and Rick Parfitt Jr. maybe sign an autograph or two on the way back. They came here wanting win. They've come away with second place, which is still fine, but they did want that victory. Rick Parfitt Jr., you can see that combination of frustration and sort of...
I thought we won the race. Why didn't we? Because it was something that will undoubtedly be explained a little bit further as we look down over what is now becoming a rather empty garage as we see Duncan Cameron.
So Duncan Cameron, he had the highs and lows, but importantly he ended with the highs, because his car, the Spirit of Race Ferrari, came good at the end, worked its way through the confusion, and he and his teammate Matt Griffin came good, and their car was in front when the checkered flag flew at the end of round 3. Back live at Rockingham for the Pro Tire Motorsport Ginetta GT5 Challenge, a packed grid of cars. Let's look as though they're 4 abreast there. I have to thank John Watson for all his sterling work through the British GT Championship. They are, don't worry, 2 abreast, those cars on the